I stood frozen in my childhood kitchen, watching my mother Patricia fold dish towels with methodical precision while delivering words that sliced through me like shards of glass. We all agreed, Rosalie, you're not welcome at Christmas this year. The statement hung between us, heavy as the December frost coating the windows. For 3 years, I'd been writing checks every month to keep this roof over their heads, never breathing a word about it to anyone. The same hands now dismissing me had served countless holiday meals funded entirely by my savings. 50 relatives would gather here in 10 days' feast on the $5,000 spread I'd already ordered, never knowing their rejection came from the very person ensuring they had a place to celebrate. Patricia continued folding linens, her movements precise and untroubled as if she hadn't just exiled her eldest daughter from the family's most sacred tradition. When did this meeting happen? I managed to ask, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. 2 weeks ago, while you were gallivanting on that business trip to Seattle. She placed a folded towel in the drawer with satisfaction. Madison documented everything properly. We took a formal vote. My younger sister Madison chose that moment to breeze into the kitchen, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the morning light. She didn't hesitate. Before pulling out her phone, swiping through screens with manicured nails, I knew she couldn't afford on her part-time retail salary. Here's the group chat. She turned the screen toward me with unmistakable pride. 19 family members participated. The vote was unanimous. I scrolled through the messages, each one a fresh wound. Aunt Barbara wrote that my success made others feel small. Uncle Robert complained about my fancy job talk. Cousin Jennifer suggested I needed to be taken down a peg. But it was Tyler's message that stung most. My own brother had typed, "She can afford her own Christmas anyway. Maybe eating alone will humble her." Your promotion to VP really was the last straw, Patricia added, wiping down counters that were already spotless. Nobody wants to hear about quarterly projections and profit margins over Christmas dinner. It's exhausting, Rosalie. You've become exhausting. Madison leaned against the granite island I knew cost $8,000 paid for, with a refinance I'd later discover. Jennifer's taking over your contributions this year. She needs the spotlight more than you do. Poor thing's been struggling since her divorce. My contributions. The words tasted bitter. They had no idea those contributions included the very foundation beneath their feet. The turkey prime rib, all those fancy desserts you always insisted on ordering. Patricia waved her hand dismissively. Jennifer's handling it now. We've already updated the catering order. Tyler wandered in, then still in his pajamas at 11 in the morning despite being 28 years old. He grabbed orange juice from the refrigerator without acknowledging me, as if I'd already become invisible. Oh, and we converted your old bedroom into gift storage, Madison announced with poorly concealed glee. Much more practical use of the space. I stood there, absorbing each revelation, my mind spinning through 3 years of sacrifices they knew nothing about. The second job I'd taken, the studio apartment I'd moved into, the vacations I'd skipped, all to ensure they kept this house while maintaining the fiction that Patricia was managing everything beautifully. Is there a reason for this? I asked finally. Beyond my job? Patricia set down her dishcloth and faced me with the self-righteous expression I'd seen countless times before. You lord your money over everyone, Rosalie. Every gathering, every holiday, you sweep in with your expensive contributions and make the rest of us look cheap. It's manipulative. The irony nearly choked me. If only she knew how many nights I'd eaten ramen to ensure her mortgage payment cleared. But something else caught my attention, a detail that shifted everything into sharp focus. Who told people I lord money over them? I asked carefully. Everyone notices, Patricia said, but her eyes shifted slightly, left her tell when lying. I thought about last Thanksgiving when Aunt Helen had mentioned how well Patricia was managing since Dad's business troubles. How Patricia had given a modest speech about making do with less and the importance of family over material things. The same night she'd served dinner on new china I knew she couldn't afford. My phone buzzed. A text from my coworker asking about my holiday plans. I stared at it then at my family who'd collectively decided I was too successful to love. That's when the first piece clicked into place. 3 months ago, Patricia had asked seemingly innocent questions about my raise. 2 months ago, she'd mentioned to her book club that she was teaching her children financial independence. Last month, she'd posted on Facebook about the rewards of good budgeting while wearing a new designer dress. "You've been telling people you're the one managing the money," I said slowly, watching her face. "You've been taking credit for the financial stability, haven't you?" "I don't know what you're implying," Patricia snapped, but Madison and Tyler exchanged glances that told me they didn't know what I meant either. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, something I rarely did in front of them. The automatic transfer scheduled for December 20th stared back at me. $3,200 like clockwork every month for 3 years. "You know what? You're right," I said, slipping my phone back into my pocket. "I think spending Christmas alone this year is exactly what I need." As I turned to leave, I caught Patricia's reflection in the microwave door. For just a moment, her composed mask slipped, revealing something that looked almost like panic, but it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Tyler called after me, his mouth full of cereal he was eating straight from the box. "Don't be dramatic, Rosalie. Nobody's saying you can't visit after New Year's." I paused at the kitchen doorway, looking back at the three of them in their comfortable morning routines, in their secure home, living their stable lives built on a foundation they didn't even know existed. "You're absolutely right," I said. "After New Year's sounds perfect." None of them caught the finality in my tone. They were too busy congratulating themselves on their united front, their successful vote, their boundary setting with difficult Rosalie, who made everyone uncomfortable with her success. As I walked through the house toward the front door, I noticed things with new eyes. The updated bathroom tiles, the smart TV mounted on the wall, the new HVAC system humming efficiently. All improvements from the last 3 years. All things they'd managed to afford despite Dad's supposed ongoing financial struggles. My hand touched the doorknob of the house I'd been secretly saving, and I made my decision. If they wanted to experience Christmas without me, I'd give them exactly that. Every single aspect of it. The drive home blurred through my tears, but I forced myself to pull over at the park where Dad had found me 3 years ago. The same bench where he'd collapsed beside me, that October night, shoulders shaking with sobs I'd never seen from him before. I could still feel the dampness of his work jacket, smell the sawdust that always clung to him after 30 years in construction. "I've lost everything, Rosie," he'd whispered into the darkness using my childhood nickname. "The Hartman Project lawsuit went through. They're taking the businesses, the equipment, everything. The bank called today about the house." Daniel Morrison had built his construction company from nothing, working 16-hour days to provide for us. Watching him crumble that night broke something inside me. He showed me the foreclosure notice with trembling hands, 30 days to pay $6,400 in missed payments, or lose the home where he'd raised 3 children. "Mom doesn't know yet," he'd admitted. "I've been hiding the letters. You know how she is about appearances, about what her book club would think, what the church would say." I'd been working as a junior marketing manager, then making $52,000 a year and feeling rich compared to my college days. Without hesitation, I'd pulled up my banking app and shown him my savings. "I'll handle it, Dad, but this stays between us." "I can't take money from my daughter," he'd protested, but relief had already flooded his features. "You're not taking anything. I'm investing in keeping our family together. Let me do this." We'd driven to my apartment that night, and I'd written the first check while he sat in my tiny living room, staring at family photos on my bookshelf. Over the next weeks, I'd quietly restructured my entire life. The downtown loft became a studio in a less fashionable neighborhood. My car lease ended, replaced with a reliable used sedan. The promotion I'd been eyeing came with a salary increase I poured entirely into the mortgage. I took freelance marketing work on weekends, writing copy until my eyes burned. My social life evaporated as I turned down dinners and trips, always citing work obligations. Friends gradually stopped inviting me places, assuming I'd become one of those people who only cared about climbing the corporate ladder. Setting up the automatic payment had felt like installing a safety net beneath my family. $3,200 on the 20th of each month, pulled from an account I'd labeled investment property in case anyone ever glimpsed my screen. The bank teller who'd helped me arrange it had praised my financial planning, assuming I was building a real estate portfolio. Now, sitting in my car outside that same park, I pulled up my complete payment history: $115,200 over 36 months. The numbers stared back at me in neat columns, each one representing a choice made, an opportunity past, a sacrifice rendered invisible. But the mortgage was just the beginning. I scrolled to another folder in my phone labeled Family Events. Every Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, 4th of July, and birthday celebration had its own spreadsheet. The Christmas file alone showed 5 years of expenses growing larger each year as Patricia's tastes expanded with what she thought was her improving financial management. $2,200 for last year's turkey and prime rib order, $1,500 for desserts from the French bakery. Patricia insisted was the only acceptable option. $800 for wine and champagne, $600 for flowers, $500 for the children's gift exchange I anonymously funded so no cousin went without presents. The numbers marched on neat evidence of love quantified in dollars spent. I found myself laughing a bitter sound in the quiet car. Patricia had called me manipulative for sweeping in with expensive contributions. She had no idea those contributions started with keeping the roof over her head and extended to every festive touch she took credit for providing. My phone buzzed with a notification from the bank, a routine reminder about the upcoming automatic transfer. December 20th, 5 days away. The payment that would process as usual, ensuring January's mortgage was covered, maintaining the illusion that Patricia had somehow navigated their financial crisis with grace and wisdom. Except this time would be different. I navigated to my saved documents and opened a file I'd created but never thought I'd need. Financial summary, Morrison Family Support. Every payment meticulously documented, every receipt saved, every transfer recorded. My accountant had praised my record-keeping during tax season, not knowing I'd maintained it out of a mixture of love and perhaps subconscious self-protection. A memory surfaced of last Easter when Patricia had hosted 40 relatives for brunch. She'd stood at the head of the dining table, raising a mimosa to toast the blessings of family and our ability to weather any storm together. Madison had posted photos on Instagram with captions about mom's amazing party planning and blessed to have a mother who makes everything magical. I'd stood in the background of those photos, anonymous as the caterer I'd hired and the florist I'd paid. Happy to see my family, happy, content to be the invisible foundation that kept them stable. Tyler had even pulled me aside that day to mock Cousin Jeffrey's cheap wine contribution, not knowing the only reason we had better options was the case of champagne I'd had delivered that morning. The irony was that I'd never wanted credit. The secrecy had been my choice as much as Dad's understanding that Patricia's pride was as fragile as spun glass. She needed to be the matriarch who held everything together, the clever manager who stretched every dollar, the provider who never let her family want for anything. But somewhere along the way, she'd begun believing her own fiction too deeply. The mortgage payments became evidence of her budgeting skills rather than her daughter's sacrifice. The elaborate celebrations proved her resourcefulness rather than my subsidies. And now, drunk on her own mythology, she'd convinced 18 family members that I was the problem, the show-off, the one who needed to be excised from their perfect Christmas. I pulled up Patricia's Facebook page, scrolling through months of posts. Blessed to be able to host Sunday dinner for 20... with photos of a spread I'd had catered, teaching my children the value of smart financial planning. posted the same week she'd asked to borrow $200 for groceries, money I'd given without question. God provides when you're faithful with what you have captioned under a photo of new patio furniture that appeared the month after I'd received my bonus. The final revelation came in her post from last week, shared with her 200 friends, preparing for our best Christmas yet. So grateful I've been able to maintain our family traditions through challenging times. It's not about money, it's about resourcefulness and love. 63 likes, 22 comments praising her strength and wisdom. My Aunt Helen notably absent from the interaction, which suddenly seemed significant. I closed Facebook and opened my email searching for one from 3 months ago. Dad's message was brief. "Rosie, thank you for everything. I know we don't talk about it, but I need you to know I see what you do. I'm working on a plan to eventually take back the payments. I love you." I'd never replied, not wanting to embarrass him further. Now I wondered if his plan had involved confronting Patricia about the truth, and if that was why she'd orchestrated this exile. Preemptive strike against the revelation that her financial house of cards was built on someone else's foundation. My phone rang. Sarah, my best friend, the only person who knew even a fraction of the truth. "How did the Christmas planning go?" she asked cheerfully. "There's been a change of plans," I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "I won't be attending family Christmas this year." Why did something happen? I stared at the park where my father had wept in my arms, where I'd promised to fix everything, where I'd taken on a burden that had slowly crushed parts of me I was only now recognizing. "Yes," I said simply, "something happened. They decided I'm too successful to be family." Sarah's sharp intake of breath told me she understood more than my words had revealed. She'd watched me skip her birthday trip to Napa because of budget constraints, while somehow always having money for family events. She'd noticed when I stopped buying new clothes, but my mother appeared in designer outfits. She'd questioned why I lived in a studio when my salary could afford better, accepting my vague answers about saving for the future. "What are you going to do?" she asked gently. I looked at the bank app still open on my screen, at the automatic payments scheduled in 5 days, at the long history of transfers that had been my secret act of love, and I now realized my enablement of their dysfunction. "I'm going to give them exactly what they ask for," I said. "Christmas without me, all of it." My hands trembled slightly as I dialed Magnolia Catering, the number saved in my phone for 5 years running. Mrs. Chen answered on the second ring with her characteristic warmth. "Rosalie, I was just reviewing your Christmas order. Patricia called yesterday with some modification requests. Should I conference you both to discuss?" The word stopped me cold. "Patricia called you?" "Oh, yes. She said you'd authorized her to make some adjustments, added the lobster tail option to the prime rib station, and requested we deliver 2 hours earlier. I must say your mother has expensive taste." I gripped my phone tighter, calculating the addition. Lobster tails for 50 people would add at least another $1,200 to an already substantial bill. "Mrs. Chen, did she happen to mention how these modifications would be paid for?" I'll pause on the line. "Well, she said to process it the same as always through your card on file, though she did ask about our refund policy if items were overordered. I found that odd since you've never requested a refund in 5 years." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Patricia had been inflating orders and pocketing the refund differences. My mind raced through past events, remembering discrepancies I dismissed. The corporate event platter that seemed smaller than ordered. The wedding cake that became a simple sheet cake after I'd paid for 3 tiers. The wine selection that mysteriously downgraded between payment and party. "Ms. Chen," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I need to cancel the entire Christmas order." Silence stretched between us. In 5 years, I'd never canceled anything, only added more. "Is everything all right, dear? This is quite last minute. The turkey alone is a heritage breed we special ordered." "I understand there will be cancellation fees." I continued, though it pained me to disappoint this woman who'd become part of my holiday tradition. Please process whatever charges are necessary, but nothing should be delivered to the Morrison residence on December 24th. The full order, the turkey ham, prime rib, all 45 side dishes, the dessert table. Each item she listed was another twist of the knife. I'd spent hours in September carefully selecting options to please every family member's preferences. Uncle Robert's favorite green bean casserole, Aunt Barbara's beloved sweet potato soufflé, the gluten-free options for Cousin Amy's children, the sugar-free desserts for Grandma Ellen, all chosen with love paid for in silence, credited to Patricia's hosting genius. Everything I confirmed. That's Rosalie, that's $5,300 worth of food for 50 people. Are you certain? I'm certain, and Mrs. Chen. If Patricia calls back, please don't accept any orders from her. The card on file will be canceled by end of day, Samus. I heard typing in the background, the efficient clicking that meant my half-decade tradition was being systematically erased. I've processed the cancellation. The fee is $800 given the short notice. The remaining $4,500 will be refunded within 3 business days. Thank you for understanding. Rosalie. Mrs. Chen's voice softened. I've been in business 30 years. I know when family dynamics shift. Would you like me to set aside a smaller order? My treat just for you. Tears threatened at her kindness. This near stranger showing more consideration than my blood relatives. That's incredibly generous, but no thank you. I have new plans this year. After ending the call, I immediately dialed Prestige Party Rentals. The manager, Tom, sounded surprised to hear from me outside our usual planning timeline. Miss Morrison, calling about the Christmas setup. We have you down for tables, chairs, heating lamps, and the deluxe tent package for December 23rd delivery. I need to cancel everything, Tom. Cancel. But your mother just called this morning confirming the delivery address and asking if we could add the dance floor option. Another addition I hadn't authorized. Another expense Patricia assumed would magically appear on my credit card. The entire order needs to be canceled. How much notice do you need? Well, we've already allocated. The inventory pulled it from other potential rentals. This is peak season for us. I could hear him calculating. Cancellation would be 50% of the total. That's, let me see, $900 of the $1,800 order. Process it, I said without hesitation, and please remove my payment information from your system entirely. My next call was to Bloomington Florists, where Patricia had apparently also been busy. The owner, Janet, greeted me with confusion. Rosalie, I'm so glad you called. Your mother left a rather elaborate voicemail about upgrading the poinsettia order to include white orchids throughout. I wanted to verify because that would triple your $500 arrangement budget. Cancel it all, Janet. Every flower, every arrangement. But the poinsettias are already allocated from our greenhouse. They're beautiful this year, that deep red you specifically requested. I thought of those flowers, decorating tables full of people who'd voted me out of their celebration. I'm sure they'll find other homes. Please donate them if possible. This is highly unusual. You've been one of our most reliable holiday clients. Janet's concern was evident. Is there something we did wrong? Nothing at all. Family circumstances have changed. What's the cancellation fee? Given the timing, typically it would be 70%, but for you, I'll make it $250. As I ended each call, I felt like I was dismantling Christmas itself, piece by carefully planned piece. The wine order from Vine and Barrel, the specialty coffee and hot chocolate bar from Brewster's, the children's gift certificates from Toys Unlimited that I anonymously tucked into stockings. Each vendor expressed surprise and concern. Several mentioned recent calls from Patricia attempting modifications or upgrades. The gift wrapping service I'd scheduled to handle the family exchange presents was particularly revealing. The coordinator mentioned Patricia had called asking if they could wrap additional items and bill them to the existing order. When told they'd need authorization from the cardholder, she'd hung up abruptly. By the time I'd worked through my list, the cancellation fees totaled nearly $3,000, a small price for the clarity it brought. Patricia hadn't just been taking credit for my contributions, she'd been actively exploiting them, skimming money through inflated orders and phantom modifications. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Mom wants to know if you ordered the chocolate fountain this year. Jennifer doesn't know how to set it up. I stared at the message, marveling at the casual assumption that despite being banished from Christmas, I'd still ensure their dessert table centerpiece arrived. Another text followed. Also, did you get the specialty dietary desserts? You know Aunt Carol will complain if there aren't vegan options. Instead of responding, I blocked Madison's number. Then Tyler's. The family group chat that had unanimously voted me out went next. One by one, I severed the digital ties that bound me to their expectations and assumptions. My final call was to my credit card company. The representative was efficient, canceling my current card and expediting a new one with a different number. As she processed the change, she mentioned, "I see you have several recurring authorizations. Should we transfer those to your new card?" "No," I said firmly. "Cancel all recurring charges, every single one, including the Morrison mortgage payment scheduled for December 20th. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of 3 years lifting off my shoulders, especially that one. The glass doors of First National Bank reflected my image back at me, professional in my navy suit, but with something new in my posture. Determination, perhaps, or just the spine I'd forgotten I had. Martha, the branch manager who'd helped me set up the automatic mortgage payment 3 years ago, recognized me immediately. "Rosalie, here for your usual quarterly review." She guided me to her office with the practiced ease of someone who'd watched my accounts grow, despite the massive monthly outflow. "Not exactly," I said, settling into the familiar leather chair. "I need to close an automatic transfer." Martha pulled up my account, her manicured nails clicking across the keyboard. "Which transfer?" I show several. "Oh, the large one on the 20th? The Morrison mortgage payment." "That's the one." Her fingers paused above the keys. "Are you sure this has been processing successfully for 36 consecutive months? Never a missed payment, never an insufficient fund. It's actually one of our most reliable transfers." The pride in her voice stung. Even my banker had noticed my consistency, my reliability, while my family had only seen someone to exploit. "I'm certain. Please cancel it effective immediately." "The December 20th payment is in just 5 days. Shall I process this final one and cancel starting January?" "No, cancel it now. No payment on December 20th. Martha's expression shifted to concern. "Rosalie, I've been in banking 25 years. When someone cancels a long-standing mortgage payment, especially one for a property not in their name, is everything all right?" I thought about explaining, telling this kind woman about the Christmas exile, the years of secret support, the discovery of Patricia's schemes. Instead, I simply said, "Family dynamics have changed." She nodded slowly, professionally. "I understand. Let me process this cancellation. The system will send a confirmation to your email. The payment scheduled for December 20th will not process. Any future mortgage payments for this property will need to be made directly by the homeowners." As she typed, I made another decision. "Martha, while I'm here, I'd like to check on an old account. My grandmother, Ellen, set up something for me years ago. An education fund, I think. Let me search. Ah, yes, here it is. The Ellen Morrison Educational Trust. Oh my," her eyes widened. "This has been accumulating interest for quite some time. Current balance is $52,437. The room tilted slightly. Patricia had told me repeatedly that this money was spent on family emergencies after Dad's business failed. She'd even produced paperwork showing withdrawals forms I now realized must have been forgeries. Has anyone else attempted to access this account? Martha's expression grew careful of professional boundaries, warring with human concern. I can tell you that this account has security flags. Multiple attempted unauthorized accesses over the past 2 years. Would you like to see the security log? My hands clenched in my lap. Yes. The printout she handed me documented 6 attempts to access the account using forged signatures and fraudulent documentation. All attempts traced back to branch visits where someone claiming to be me had tried to make withdrawals. The dates aligned with Patricia's shopping sprees, her sudden home improvements, her mysterious windfalls. We have security footage of all these attempts, Martha said quietly. The fraud department has been monitoring this account. We were waiting for you to come in personally. Can I see the footage? She hesitated, then pulled up a file on her computer, turning the monitor so we could both see. The grainy bank footage showed Patricia dressed in her Sunday best sliding forged documents across the counter. Her face was clear, unmistakable. In one video, she even had Madison with her, teaching her daughter the art of deception by example. We've maintained all evidence per federal banking regulations, Martha explained. If you choose to pursue charges... I stared at my mother's face, frozen on the screen, caught in the act of trying to steal her own mother's gift to me. The education fund Grandma Ellen had scraped together from her seamstress wages meant to ensure I could build a better life. I need to think about that, I said finally. For now, can I make a withdrawal? Of course. This is your money clearly documented and protected. $10,000. Cash. Martha's eyebrows rose slightly, but she processed the request without comment. As she counted out $100 bills, she said, "You know your grandmother came in every month for 15 years to add to this account. $20 here, $50 there. She told me once that you were special, that you'd been taking care of everyone since you were young. She wanted to make sure someone took care of you too." Tears burned my eyes as I accepted the bank envelope thick with cash. Grandma Ellen had seen me, really seen me in a way Patricia never had. She'd known I'd need this safety net someday, this proof that someone in my family had loved me without conditions or expectations. Martha, one more thing. Can you check if there are any other accounts in my name I might not know about? Her search revealed 2 more surprises. A small savings account Dad had opened when I was born, untouched and growing slowly to $8,000. And a joint checking account with Patricia that I'd never authorized, showing regular transfers from my main account that I hadn't noticed small amounts adding up to thousands over time. "This joint account is fraudulent," Martha stated. "You never signed these documents. That's not your signature." Another forgery, another betrayal, another piece of evidence that my exile from Christmas was less about my success making others uncomfortable and more about Patricia's fear that her house of lies was collapsing. "Close it," I said. "Return any funds to my main account and flag it as fraud." As Martha processed everything, she handed me forms and documentation. "Rosalie, I hope I'm not overstepping, but you might want to run a full credit check. If someone has been forging your signature on bank documents..." The suggestion sent chills down my spine. What else had Patricia done in my name? What other financial violation had she committed while I was busy ensuring she kept her home? I left the bank with $10,000 in cash, a canceled mortgage payment evidence of fraud, and a growing understanding of just how deep Patricia's deceptions ran. The December 20th payment wouldn't process. In 5 days, First National would generate an automated notice about the missed payment. By December 23rd, Patricia would receive her first warning that the safety net she'd taken for granted had been cut. My phone buzzed with emails confirming each cancellation. The mortgage payment, the fraudulent joint account, the various recurring charges Patricia had somehow attached to my cards. Each confirmation felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd unknowingly given away. As I sat in my car in the bank parking lot, I opened my laptop and initiated a comprehensive credit check. The results loaded slowly, each line revealing another violation. Credit cards in my name I'd never opened, thankfully all declined due to the bank's security measures. Utility accounts using my social security number. A car lease application from last month that had been flagged as suspicious. Patricia hadn't just been taking my money, she'd been trying to steal my entire financial identity piece by piece while I paid her mortgage and funded her lifestyle. The woman who'd called me manipulative had been manipulating me on a scale I was only beginning to understand. I pulled out the cash from my bank envelope, feeling its weight. $10,000 that Grandma Ellen had saved for me, one small bill at a time. Money Patricia had tried to steal but failed. Money that represented love without strings, support without manipulation. The clock on my dashboard showed 2:15. In less than 72 hours, caterers would arrive at my childhood home to find their orders canceled. Rental companies would call about missing deliveries. Florists would confirm that no Christmas arrangements were coming, and Patricia would begin to understand that voting me out of Christmas meant losing everything I'd been providing. But first, she'd discover that January's mortgage payment wasn't coming, that the free ride she'd been taking while playing the victim was over, that her carefully constructed image as the family's financial savior was about to crumble like tissue paper in rain. I started my car and drove home to my small studio apartment, the one I'd moved to in order to afford her lifestyle. But today, for the first time in 3 years, it didn't feel like a sacrifice. It felt like freedom. December 18th arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of false spring that makes Michigan winters bearable. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office, finally focused on work without the underlying anxiety of family financial burdens, when my phone erupted at exactly 12:17. Patricia's name flashed, first followed immediately by Madison, then Tyler, then a cascade of extended family members. I let them all go to voicemail, watching the notifications pile up like evidence of an explosion I'd triggered from afar. The first voicemail was predictably from Patricia, her voice scaling octaves I'd never heard before. "Rosalie Marie Morrison, what have you done? Magnolia Catering just called saying our entire Christmas order is canceled. This is sabotage. Call me back immediately." Madison's text arrived next, all capitals. "The rental company says someone canceled our tables and chairs. WTF, Rosalie." Tyler attempted a phone call that I declined, followed by a text that simply read, "Not cool." The family group chat that I'd blocked was apparently in meltdown mode, evidenced by individual messages from cousins who'd never texted me directly before. Aunt Barbara, who'd written that I made others feel small, suddenly found my number to leave a shaking voicemail. "Rosalie, sweetheart, there must be some misunderstanding. The children are expecting Christmas dinner. You can't punish innocent children for adult disagreements." I almost laughed at that. Where was concern for innocence when they voted to exclude me? Uncle Robert's message was more direct. "This is about family loyalty, young lady. You don't abandon ship just because your feelings are hurt." The irony of being lectured about abandonment by people who'd formally voted to abandon me wasn't lost. My phone rang again, Jennifer, the cousin who was supposed to take over my contributions. I answered this one curious. "Rosalie, thank God," she gasped, sounding near tears. "Your mom said I was handling Christmas food this year, but I thought she meant I'd be coordinating the orders you already paid for. I can't afford to feed 50 people. I'm still paying off my divorce lawyer." "Then why did you vote to exclude me?" I asked calmly. Silence. Then quietly, "Your mom said you wanted a break from hosting duties, that you complained about the expense and needed us to step up." Another lie, another manipulation. Patricia had twisted the narrative to get her vote, making me the villain who needed to be relieved of my burden, rather than the daughter she wanted to punish for success. That's not what happened, Jennifer. Oh God, oh no, Rosalie, I have $43 in my checking account. What am I supposed to do? I suppose you'll need to talk to Patricia about that. After all, everyone agreed I'm not welcome at Christmas. I ended the call as she began to hyperventilate. My phone immediately rang again. This time it was Marcus, our cousin, the lawyer, and I answered out of professional courtesy. Rosalie, I'm calling to inform you that Patricia has asked me to explore legal options regarding your cancellation of family holiday services. His voice was stiff, formal, uncomfortable. She's claiming this constitutes some form of financial abandonment or breach of implied contract. Implied contract? I couldn't help but laugh. Marcus, did Patricia tell you who's been paying for these holiday services? She said they were family contributions that you coordinated. I've been paying for everything personally. Every turkey, every rental, every flower. For 5 years. Would you like to see my credit card statements? A long pause. That's not what I was told. I'm sure it wasn't. Did she also mention I've been paying her mortgage for 3 years? The silence stretched so long I wondered if we'd been disconnected. Finally, Marcus cleared his throat. I'm going to need to recuse myself from this situation. And Rosalie. You might want to get your own lawyer. Document everything. The calls kept coming. Cousins who'd barely acknowledged my existence suddenly needed to express their disappointment. Aunts who'd gossiped about my showing off now begged me to reconsider. The phone became a hot coal in my hand, each ring another burn. Then Patricia called again. This time I answered. How dare you, she hissed without preamble. How dare you humiliate me like this? 45 people are expecting Christmas dinner in 6 days. Then I guess you'll need to figure out how to feed them, I replied. After all, I'm not welcome, remember? This isn't about that vote. This is about family responsibility. Interesting perspective from someone who held a formal vote to exclude their daughter from family gatherings. You're being a child, a petty, vindictive child. Is this about money? Fine, I'll let you pay for everything and you can come to dinner. Happy. The casualness with which she offered to let me pay for everything while graciously allowing me to attend was breathtaking. As if my money was welcome, but I was merely tolerated. No, Patricia, I'm not happy, and I won't be paying for anything or attending anything. Then you're destroying Christmas. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. That was a step too far. My grandmother, the one whose education fund you tried to steal 6 times with forged documents. That grandmother. Silence. The kind that screams guilt across phone lines. I don't know what you're talking about, she finally managed, but her voice had lost its rage, replaced by something closer to fear. The bank has security footage, Patricia. Every attempt, every forged signature, every fraudulent document. I heard her sharp intake of breath, could practically see her calculating, scheming, trying to find an angle. If you're threatening me... I'm not threatening anything. I'm simply done. Done paying your mortgage. Done funding your parties. Done being your personal ATM while you tell everyone I'm manipulative and exhausting. The mortgage? Her voice cracked. What do you mean, the mortgage? Check your bank account on December 20th, or rather, check what won't be in it. Dad can explain the details. I hung up on her sputtering response. The texts evolved as the afternoon wore on. First anger and disbelief, then bargaining and manipulation. By 3 o'clock, full panic had set in. Madison, Mom's crying. She says we might lose the house. What did you do? Tyler, this is seriously messed up. You're really going to make us homeless over a stupid vote. Aunt Barbara, your mother is having a breakdown. This is elder abuse. The last one made me laugh out loud. Patricia was 55 and in perfect health. Her only ailment was chronic entitlement, complicated by acute consequences. Then came the message that stopped me cold. From Dad's number, but clearly written by Patricia, "Your father is devastated by your cruelty. His heart can't take this stress. If something happens to him, it's on you." Using Dad as emotional blackmail was her nuclear option. I knew him well enough to recognize he'd never write those words, would never weaponize his health against his children. This was pure Patricia, desperate and flailing. I texted back, "Tell Dad I love him and he knows how to reach me directly." The family group dynamics shifted as the day progressed. Sides began forming. Some relatives doubled down on their anger at me. Others started questioning Patricia's version of events. A few went silent, perhaps recognizing their own complicity in the situation. My phone buzzed with a different kind of message. "Aunt Helen, Patricia's estranged sister, heard about Christmas. Good for you. She pulled the same manipulation with me 20 years ago. I have a small gathering planned if you'd like to join. No strings, no expectations." The first glimpse of family that felt genuine in years. As evening approached, the messages grew more frantic. Jennifer admitted she'd already spent money she didn't have on decorations, assuming the food was covered. Madison revealed she'd invited her boyfriend's entire family, promising an elaborate celebration. Tyler confessed he'd been bragging to coworkers about his family's legendary Christmas parties. They'd all built castles on the foundation of my silent support, never wondering what would happen if that foundation disappeared. The final call of the day came from an unexpected source. Pastor Williams from Patricia's church, his voice gentle but concerned. "Rosalie, your mother came to my office today in quite a state. She's asking the congregation to donate food for your family Christmas. I wanted to verify the situation before making any announcements." My mother, who'd posted about her financial wisdom and resourcefulness, was now begging her church for charity, rather than admit she'd been living off her daughter's secret support. "Pastor Williams, I appreciate your call. The situation is that my family voted to exclude me from Christmas, so I've withdrawn my financial support. They have 6 days to figure out their own celebration." "I see." His pause was thoughtful. "You know, Rosalie, I've counseled many families through difficulties. It's remarkable how often the quietest givers are the most taken for granted. Whatever you decide, make sure it brings you peace." As I ended the call, I looked around my small studio apartment. Tomorrow, I'd start looking for a better place, something that reflected my actual income rather than what was left after supporting ungrateful relatives. Tonight, though, I'd simply enjoy the quiet of a phone that was finally blessedly silent. December 20th dawned crisp and clear, one of those perfect winter mornings that made the frost patterns on windows look like deliberate art. I woke early, made coffee, and settled onto my couch with my laptop, knowing that somewhere across town, an automated system was failing to find funds to transfer. By my calculation, Patricia would discover the missing payment within 3 to 5 business days when her obsessive checking of the account balance revealed numbers that didn't match her expectations. She tracked that mortgage payment like some people track the stock market evidence of her financial acumen that wasn't actually hers. I was wrong about the timeline. My phone rang at 8:43 on December 23rd, Patricia's hysteria crackling through before I even said hello. "The bank made an error," she screeched. "They're saying December's payment never arrived. This is your fault. You must have messed something up with your transfer." "There's no error," I said calmly, sipping my coffee. "I canceled the automatic payment." The silence stretched like taffy, sweet and sticky and inevitable. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped to a whisper. "What do you mean you canceled it?" "I mean, I stopped paying your mortgage, Patricia. I've been covering it for 3 years ever since Dad's business failed. $3,200 a month, $115,000 total. But since I'm not welcome at Christmas, I figured you didn't need my money either." "You're lying." But her voice shook with the kind of fear that comes from truth, not deception. "We've been managing fine. I've been budgeting carefully." "Really? Then you won't have any problem making January's payment or dealing with the late fees from December." Daniel. I heard her scream away from the phone. Daniel, get in here. Muffled conversation, raised voices, what sounded like a door slamming. Then Patricia was back, breathing hard. You told him, didn't you? You broke your promise to your father. I didn't tell him anything, but it's interesting that you knew about our agreement. Did Dad confess, or did you figure it out on your own? Another pause, calculations spinning behind it. He talks in his sleep sometimes, but that money, that was rent. You were paying rent for all those years you lived here? I moved out 7 years ago, Patricia. I've been in my own apartment for 4 years before the payment started. Try again. Then it was payback for raising you. Do you know how expensive children are? Is that really the argument you want to make, that I owed you $100,000 for being born? Her tactics shifted, voice suddenly sweetening. Rosalie, honey, let's not fight about this. Christmas is in 2 days. Everyone's expecting. The family needs. The family that voted me out. That was a misunderstanding. Madison showed me the group chat. I may have expressed myself poorly when explaining the situation. You told them I complained about the expense. You said I wanted a break from hosting duties. You lied to get your unanimous vote. I was trying to protect your privacy. I didn't want them to know about your financial situation. I laughed, genuinely amused. My financial situation? You mean the one where I could afford to pay your mortgage while funding every family event. That problematic situation. Tyler's voice joined the call, speakerphone crackling. Rosalie, this is seriously uncool. You can't just stop paying without warning. I'm not welcome at Christmas, Tyler. That was the warning. But the house, Mom says we could lose the house. Then I suggest you get a job that involves more than gaming in your childhood bedroom. You're 28. Maybe it's time to contribute to the household you're so worried about losing. Madison joined the chaos, her voice shrill. This is financial abuse. You got us dependent on your help and then yanked it away. The irony of being accused of financial abuse by people who'd been unknowingly living off my labor for years, while simultaneously insulting me, was rich. Madison, did you know Mom tried to steal Grandma Ellen's education fund? The one meant for me 6 times with forged signatures. Silence from Madison. Patricia's sharp, that's a lie, overlapped with Tyler's confused, what education fund? Ask her about the security footage at the bank. Ask her about the credit cards in my name. Ask her about the joint account she opened without my permission. Stop it! Patricia's voice broke. Stop trying to turn my children against me. I'm not trying to do anything except live my life without funding yours. You wanted me out, I'm out. Completely. Dad's voice finally joined the call, quiet and resigned. Rosalie, princess, can we talk? Just the 2 of us. Call me on your cell, Dad. Just you. I hung up and waited. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. I'm in the garage, Dad said, his voice tired. She doesn't know I'm calling. Have you known all along that she knew about the payments? A heavy sigh. I suspected. She stopped nagging about money right after our arrangement started. Never questioned how bills got paid. I should have known she'd figure it out. Did you know about her trying to steal Grandma's fund? Not until today. Rosalie, I've failed you, as a father, as a man. I let my shame about the business failing turn me into a coward. Let you carry us while she took credit. Why didn't you tell her the truth? At first pride, then fear, then, I don't know, habit. She built this whole identity around being the family provider, the smart manager. I watched her lie to everyone and said nothing. She's been stealing more than just credit, Dad. She's committed fraud, multiple times in my name. Silence, then barely audible. I know, I've seen some of it. The packages, the shopping, the upgrades to the house. I asked once where the money came from, and she said she'd figured out some investment strategies. I knew it was a lie, but you let it go. I let it go. I let you pay our bills while she spent money we didn't have on things we didn't need, and I said nothing. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to start the payments again. I want you to know I'm sorry. Or what are you going to do now? I don't know. The house. We refinanced last year. Patricia said it was for improvements, but I think most of it went to other things. We owe more now than when you started helping. My stomach dropped. They'd increased the debt while I was paying it down. How much more? The original mortgage was $200,000. We owe $290 now. $90,000 in cash out refinancing in 1 year. While I paid their monthly bills, Patricia had been borrowing against the equity spending future security for present luxury. Dad, you need to see a lawyer and a financial advisor and probably a marriage counselor. I know. Rosalie, that Christmas vote? I didn't know about it until after. I would have never. You're my daughter, my firstborn, the one who saved us even when we didn't deserve saving. Come to Christmas at my place, Dad. Just you. I'll try. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment processing the layers of deception. Patricia hadn't just taken my money and credit, she'd leveraged it into more debt, dug the hole deeper while I thought I was filling it in. The house I'd been saving was worth less than they owed despite 3 years of payments. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a screenshot from Madison's friend Chloe showing a social media post Patricia had made an hour ago. Devastated to announce we may have to cancel Christmas due to unexpected financial cruelty from someone who should love family above money. Prayers appreciated. Donations welcome. She'd gone public painting herself as the victim of a heartless daughter. The comments were already piling up with sympathy and judgment from people who didn't know the truth. But I noticed something interesting. Several comments were being deleted, almost as fast as they appeared. Someone was fighting back against the narrative. A second text from Chloe. Madison told me the truth weeks ago about the mortgage, the parties, everything. I'm screen recording all of this. Patricia is deleting comments from people asking questions. Sometimes the truth has allies in unexpected places. As the morning progressed, the family group chat exploded again, this time with screenshots of Patricia's post. Some relatives were appalled by the public airing of private business. Others questioned why someone who'd managed money so well suddenly needed donations. Uncle Robert texted privately, "Rosalie, is it true? Have you been paying their mortgage?" I sent him a simple screenshot of one bank statement showing the automatic transfer. His response was immediate. Jesus Christ, and she let us vote you out. The family dynamic was shifting like tectonic plates, truth creating earthquakes in carefully constructed illusions. By noon, Patricia's donation post had been taken down, but the damage to her image was done. The woman who'd preached financial wisdom was begging for handouts. The mother who'd claimed successful budgeting was facing foreclosure. And somewhere in that house, built on lies and funded by secret sacrifice, December's mortgage payment remained unpaid, accumulating late fees and consequences that no amount of manipulation could erase. Christmas Eve arrived with a blizzard warning that seemed fitting for the storm brewing within the Morrison family. I woke to 37 text messages, 12 missed calls, and a voicemail from Tyler that simply said, "Mom's locked herself in her room and won't come out." My apartment smelled like cinnamon and sage from the small turkey breast I'd put in the slow cooker. A humble feast for my chosen family Sarah, who'd immediately cleared her schedule when I told her about the exile. Mr. Williams from next door, whose daughter lived overseas. And 3 co-workers who'd mentioned having nowhere to go for the holidays. 6 people who actually wanted my company, not just my credit card. At 9 a.m., the doorbell rang. Jennifer stood in my hallway mascara, streaking her cheeks, holding a casserole dish like a peace offering. "I'm so sorry," she blurted before I could speak. "I had no idea about the mortgage, the parties, any of it. Mom told me this morning after she saw Patricia's Facebook post. You all thought I was showing off. I finished." Patricia made it seem like you threw money around to make us feel bad. She said you complained about having to help, that you were bitter about it. God, Rosalie, she played us all. I looked at my cousin. Really looked at her. Recently divorced, struggling, manipulated into participating in my exile by a master manipulator. Would you like coffee? She nearly collapsed with relief. Please. As I made coffee, Jennifer unraveled 3 years of Patricia's lies, how my aunt had mentioned Patricia's clever investing, how Patricia had given a presentation at book club about stretching dollars in tough times, how she'd counseled Jennifer during her divorce about never depending on anyone financially while secretly depending entirely on me. She even told me I should be more like her, less like you. Jennifer laughed bitterly, said depending on others for money was weakness. Meanwhile, she was cashing your checks. She wasn't cashing them. They were automatic transfers. She probably convinced herself she'd earned them somehow. My phone rang. Madison's name appeared, but the voice was male, Greg, her boyfriend. Rosalie, I'm sorry to bother you, but Madison's pretty hysterical. I just found out my whole family was invited to a Christmas dinner that doesn't exist. My mom drove in from Ohio with pies. I'm sorry, Greg. Madison knew the situation when she invited them. That's the thing she didn't know. She thought you were just being petty about the decorations or something. Her mom told her you'd already paid for everything through February. We only found out the truth an hour ago when the mortgage company called. On Christmas Eve, emergency contact about the missed payment apparently. They're threatening acceleration if January isn't paid in full with December's late fees. Acceleration meant calling in the entire loan, nearly $300,000 due immediately or face foreclosure. Patricia had missed more than just December's payment. Greg, that's not my problem anymore. I know, I'm not calling for that. Madison needs somewhere to go. Her mom's having some kind of breakdown screaming about betrayal and ingratitude. Her dad's locked in his office. Tyler's drunk already. It's not safe here. I thought about Madison's cruel smile when showing me the unanimous vote, her glee about converting my bedroom to storage. Then I thought about being the bigger person the one Grandma Ellen raised me to be. She can come for dinner tonight, 6 o'clock. But only if she comes with a genuine apology and a willingness to hear the truth. Thank you, we'll be there. Within an hour, my exile had created its own diaspora. Jennifer left with promises to spread the truth to our extended family. Mr. Williams knocked to confirm he was still invited, despite all the family drama he'd overheard through thin walls. Sarah arrived early with wine and homemade rolls ready to support me through whatever came next. At 4 o'clock, another unexpected visitor. Aunt Helen stood at my door with a poinsettia and a knowing smile. Thought you might need family who understands, she said simply. I brought dessert. Helen settled into my kitchen like she belonged there, finally sharing her own story. 20 years ago, she'd been the successful one, the sister with the good job, while Patricia struggled with young children. She'd helped quietly grocery money here, utility payments there, until Patricia had twisted the narrative telling everyone Helen was flaunting her success and making the family feel inferior. The final straw was when she told our mother I'd been demanding repayment. Helen said decorating sugar cookies with practiced ease. Mama died thinking I was heartless. Patricia spoke at her funeral about the burden of caring for family who only cared about money. I realized then that some people feed on others' kindness until there's nothing left but bones. Wait, why didn't you tell anyone the truth? Who would have believed me? Patricia had crafted her image too carefully, the struggling young mother doing her best versus the career woman with no kids who must be selfish. Sound familiar? Painfully familiar. Do you regret walking away? I regret letting it go on so long. I regret every check I wrote that funded her lies, but walking away that saved my sanity and probably my soul. Tyler appeared at 5:30, swaying slightly, clutching a garbage bag of hastily wrapped presents. Mom doesn't know I'm here, he slurred, but these are yours. Been under the tree. Figured you should have them. I didn't tell him there wouldn't have been a tree without my usual order from the Christmas tree farm, another cancellation Patricia was probably discovering. Instead, I made him coffee and let him sit in my living room sobering up while watching Sarah and Helen cook. She's been lying my whole life, hasn't she? He asked suddenly. About the money, about you, about everything? Not my whole life, I corrected gently. Just since things got hard. Sometimes people break under pressure, Tyler. They create stories to survive. The problem is when they start believing their own fiction. She tried to make me think Dad was weak for losing the business, said real men don't fail, but you were paying for everything, weren't you? So who really failed? Madison and Greg arrived as promised, her face puffy from crying, his arm protective around her shoulders. She stood in my doorway like a penitent child, words tumbling out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought you were just... Mom always said... I didn't know about any of it until today when the bank called and she started screaming about you destroying everything, and I asked Dad and he told me, and I'm sorry. Come in, I said simply. We're about to eat. My small apartment filled with an unlikely collection of refugees from Patricia's kingdom of lies. Tyler facing the reality that his extended adolescence had been subsidized by the sister he'd mocked. Madison discovering her mother's financial wisdom was stolen valor. Helen, the ghost of Morrison family past, proof that Patricia's patterns were decades old. And through it all, Patricia remained locked in her bedroom, refusing to face the consequences of her carefully constructed fiction. We ate turkey and stuffing sweet potatoes and green beans, food I'd prepared with my own hands in my own space with my own money. No caterers to impress anyone. No elaborate presentations for Facebook photos. Just real food shared with people who were beginning to see reality clearly. I found the paperwork, Madison said quietly over pie. The refinance documents. Mom forged Dad's signature. He didn't know about the cash out. The table went still. Even in my worst estimations of Patricia's deceptions, I hadn't imagined she'd forged Daniel's signature on nearly $100,000 of debt. She's been planning to divorce him, Tyler added whine, loosening his tongue. I heard her on the phone with someone last month. Said she just needed to get through one more year of building her credit, then she'd be set. Helen and I exchanged looks across the table. Patricia hadn't just been stealing money and credit. She'd been planning an exit strategy using my payments to establish herself while setting Daniel up for financial ruin. You have to tell him, I said to both siblings. He needs to know before she can do any more damage. Tell him what? Daniel's voice came from my doorway. Sarah had left it unlocked for late arrivals, and he stood there looking haggard but resolute. I came for Christmas dinner if the invitation still stands. Madison broke first words, spilling out about forgery and divorce plans and secret phone calls. Tyler added details about hidden credit cards and mysterious shopping trips. I contributed the bank's evidence of her fraud attempts. Helen provided historical context of Patricia's long pattern of deception. Daniel listened to it all, aging a decade in 20 minutes. When we finished, he pulled out a manila envelope I hadn't noticed him carrying. I went to the bank today, he said quietly, told them I needed to see all our accounts, all our loans, everything. Told them I suspected identity theft. He spread papers across my small dining table. She's destroyed us, Rosalie. We owe more than the house is worth. Credit cards I didn't know existed maxed out. A personal loan for $50,000 I never signed for. She's even borrowed against my life insurance. The numbers were staggering. Patricia had built a house of cards that made the mortgage look like a minor issue. $500,000 in total debt on a house worth maybe $350,000 in the current market. Credit cards with my social security number that the bank had fortunately flagged. Loans against every possible asset. I've already called a lawyer, Daniel continued, filed a police report for the identity theft, started the divorce paperwork, but I wanted to spend Christmas with my real family first. As midnight approached on Christmas Eve, snow falling heavy outside my small windows, We sat together in the ruins of Patricia's deceptions. The family she'd manipulated and divided, slowly piecing itself back together in a studio apartment she'd never bothered to visit. My phone buzzed with a text from Pastor Williams. "Your mother came to midnight service alone. Told everyone you'd abandoned the family. Several congregants who know better set her straight. She left in tears. Prayers for your family's healing." Patricia's kingdom of lies was crumbling one revealed truth at a time. The image she'd cultivated for decades was dissolving like snow on warm ground, leaving only the cold reality of what she'd done and who she really was. Christmas morning arrived with the kind of pristine snowfall that makes everything look clean and new, as if the world itself had been given a fresh start. I woke on my couch having given my bed to Dad, who'd been too exhausted and emotionally drained to drive home. Tyler had crashed on an air mattress, while Madison and Greg had taken an Uber back to his parents' hotel, promising to return for breakfast. The apartment smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls, Helen having arrived early to help prepare breakfast for our unconventional gathering. Dad emerged from the bedroom looking more rested than he had in years, as if finally confronting the truth had lifted a physical weight. "Merry Christmas, Princess," he said, accepting coffee gratefully. "First honest Christmas morning I've had in years." What do you mean?" He settled at my small kitchen table, hands wrapped around the mug. "Every Christmas for the past 3 years, I've watched your mother play hostess with money I knew wasn't hers. Watched her accept compliments for parties she didn't fund. Watched her lecture others about financial responsibility while living entirely on your sacrifice. The guilt ate at me like acid." "But you never said anything." "Cowardice," he admitted simply. "Pure cowardice. I told myself I was protecting you by keeping the secret. Really, I was protecting myself from her rage, from admitting I'd failed as a provider, from facing what I'd let her become." Tyler joined us, sheepish and hungover but present. "Mom's been texting me all night, alternating between calling us traitors and begging us to come home." "Are you going to?" I asked. "No, I'm 28 years old and I've never stood up to her. Never questioned why I was allowed to live rent-free while playing video games. Never wondered how she afforded my lifestyle while claiming poverty. I'm done being her baby boy." The doorbell rang. Madison and Greg arrived with his parents, who'd insisted on contributing breakfast casseroles despite the chaos. Greg's mother, a tiny woman named Donna, immediately took charge of my kitchen with Midwestern efficiency. "I don't care what family drama is happening," she announced, arranging dishes. "It's Christmas and we're having a proper breakfast. Madison, dear, stop crying and help me with plates." As we settled around my extended dining table, borrowed folding chairs mixing with my regular ones, Dad's phone rang. Patricia's ringtone. He declined the call, but she immediately called again. "Put it on speaker," Helen suggested. "We all need to hear this." Dad reluctantly answered, placing the phone in the center of the table. Patricia's voice filled the room, hoarse from crying or screaming or both. "Daniel Morrison, you get home right now. How dare you abandon me on Christmas? How dare you leave me alone in this house?" "Patricia," Dad said calmly, "I'm having Christmas with our children." "Those ungrateful brats are not welcome in my home. They've betrayed me just like Rosalie, just like you." "We know about the forgeries," Dad continued, his voice steady. "The refinance you did without my knowledge. The credit cards in Rosalie's name. The loans against my life insurance. It's over, Patricia." The silence stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up, then a sound like a wounded animal. "I did it for us, for the family, to maintain our standing, our reputation." "You did it for yourself," Helen interjected, "just like you did 20 years ago with my money, just like you've done to everyone who ever tried to help you." "Helen," Patricia's voice cracked, "you're there with them." "We're all here, Patricia. Your children, your husband, your sister, and the daughter you tried to destroy. The only one missing is you by your own choices." "I'm coming over," Patricia announced. "You can't have Christmas without me. I'm the mother. I'm the center of this family." No, I said firmly. You're not welcome here. Just like I wasn't welcome in the home I was paying for. You made your choice, Patricia. Live with it. You can't ban me from seeing my family. I'm not banning you from anything. I'm simply maintaining boundaries. Anyone here is free to leave and spend Christmas with you, but you are not welcome in my home. Tyler shook his head. Madison gripped Greg's hand. Dad stared at the table. Even Helen, estranged for 2 decades, looked sad rather than vindicated. This is abuse, Patricia screamed. Elder abuse, financial abuse, emotional abuse. I'll sue all of you. With what money? Tyler asked quietly. The accounts Dad froze, the credit cards that got canceled, the mortgage that's in default. What exactly are you going to sue with Mom? Another wounded sound. Then the call ended. We sat in silence for a moment before Donna cleared her throat. Well, that was festive. Now who wants hash browns? The morning progressed with a surreal normalcy. We opened presents, the ones Tyler had salvaged from under Patricia's tree. Most were items I'd purchased over the years, quietly ensuring everyone had something to open. Patricia had simply slapped her name on the tags. Madison gave me a wrapped journal purchased yesterday from the hospital gift shop. I thought you might want to write all this down, she said quietly. Get it out of your system. Maybe help other people in similar situations. Around noon, Dad's phone rang again. This time, it was the bank's emergency line. Patricia had tried to access the safety deposit box, but was denied due to the fraud alert. She'd caused a scene demanding her inheritance documents and had to be escorted out by security. Inheritance documents? I asked. Dad paled. My mother's jewelry. She left it to you and Madison when she died, but Patricia said she'd keep it safe until you were older. I haven't seen it in years. Another theft, another betrayal. How many layers of deception had Patricia built over the decades? Greg's father, quiet until now, spoke up. I'm a psychiatrist. What you're describing sounds like narcissistic personality disorder with possible antisocial features. The elaborate deceptions, the lack of remorse, the projection of blame. Has she ever shown genuine empathy? We all exchanged glances, searching for memories of Patricia showing real concern for others without ulterior motives. The silence was telling. She needs help, he continued, professional help. But she has to want it, and people with these patterns rarely admit they need help. So what do we do? Madison asked. Protect yourselves, Helen said firmly. Document everything. Lock down your credit. Change all passwords. Consider restraining orders if necessary. I made the mistake of thinking distance would be enough. Patricia found ways to damage my reputation for years after I cut contact. The afternoon brought unexpected visitors. Aunt Barbara arrived with apologies and a fruit basket, having discovered Patricia had borrowed $5,000 for a fictional medical emergency. Uncle Robert came by to return tools he'd borrowed from Dad, admitting Patricia had convinced him Daniel was too proud to ask for them back. Each visitor brought another piece of the puzzle, another example of Patricia's manipulations. She'd created an entire web of lies, positioning herself at the center as the long-suffering martyr, holding everyone together while secretly robbing them blind. By evening, we'd accumulated enough evidence to fill a filing cabinet. Forged documents, fraudulent loans, stolen inheritances, borrowed money never repaid. The scope was staggering. How did we not see it? Tyler asked, staring at the pile of evidence. How did she fool us for so long? Because we loved her, Dad said simply. Love makes you blind to what you don't want to see, and she counted on that, used it as a weapon. As our strange Christmas drew to a close, I stood at my window, watching snow continue to fall. My phone had been quiet for hours, Patricia finally accepting that her traditional audience wasn't coming back for the show. Madison joined me at the window. Do you think she's okay alone in that house? She's not alone, I said. She has her lies to keep her company, her image to maintain, her delusions to comfort her. Those have always been more important to her than we were. That's so sad. Yes, I agreed. It is. Dad approached snow boots in hand. I should go check on her, make sure she hasn't done anything. No, Helen interrupted. That's what she wants. A welfare check she can spin into concern proof that you still care despite her abuse. Let her sit with the consequences for once. But it's Christmas, he protested weakly. And she chose to spend it alone rather than admit wrongdoing, I reminded him. Every consequence she's facing is one she created. You can't save her from herself, Dad. I tried for 3 years. Look where it got us. He set down the boots, accepting the truth. We'd all tried to save Patricia in our own ways. Me with money, Dad with silence, the kids with compliance, Helen with distance. But you can't save someone who sees everyone else as either an audience or an ATM. As my chosen family prepared to leave, each person hugged me with genuine warmth. This was what real family felt like, not the performed affection of Patricia's productions, but actual care, actual connection. Same time next year, Sarah asked with a grin. Absolutely, I replied, but maybe in a bigger apartment. After everyone left, I sat in my quiet space, surrounded by the remnants of our improvised celebration. Paper plates and real gratitude, store-bought cookies and genuine laughter. A humble Christmas that had somehow healed more than all of Patricia's elaborate productions combined. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Your mother is at the emergency room. Anxiety attack. Thought you should know. Neighbor Carol. I stared at the message, waiting to feel something. Guilt. Worry. The old instinct to rush in and fix everything. Instead, I felt only a tired sort of pity. Patricia had spent so many years performing that she'd forgotten how to simply exist without an audience. I texted back, "Thank you for letting me know. Her husband and adult children are aware of the situation." Then I turned off my phone, made myself tea, and opened the journal Madison had given me. On the first page, I wrote, "This is the story of how I saved my family by refusing to save them anymore." December the 26th arrived with the kind of brutal clarity that follows emotional storms. I woke to 53 missed calls, 47 of them from Patricia, the rest from numbers I didn't recognize. My email inbox showed alerts from my credit monitoring service. Someone had attempted to open 3 new credit cards in my name at 4 a.m. I dressed carefully, professionally, knowing today would set the tone for everything to follow. By 8:30, I was sitting in the office of Catherine Walsh, the attorney Sarah had recommended. Catherine was everything I needed, sharp, experienced in financial fraud cases, and completely unmoved by family drama. "Walk me through everything," she said, legal pad ready. "Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out." For 2 hours, I laid out 3 years of financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud. Catherine took notes with surgical precision, occasionally asking for clarification or documentation. I'd brought everything: bank statements, credit reports, screenshots of Patricia's post the security footage documentation from the bank. This is extensive," Catherine said finally. "Your mother has committed multiple felonies. Identity theft alone carries up to 15 years in federal prison. The mortgage fraud, the forged signatures, the credit cards. We're looking at serious charges." "I don't necessarily want her in prison," I admitted. "I just want it to stop." Catherine leaned back, studying me. "Here's what you need to understand. Your mother is escalating. The attempted credit cards this morning, that's not someone who's going to stop. That's someone who's desperate and dangerous. If you don't press charges, she'll find other victims." My phone buzzed. Tyler texting urgently. "Mom just called saying she's suing you for elder abuse. Says her lawyer is sending papers today." I showed Catherine, who actually laughed. "Elder abuse? She's 55 and healthy. No court would entertain this. But it shows she's not backing down. We need to move fast." We spent the next hour crafting a cease and desist letter and preparing documentation for a restraining order. Catherine would file charges for identity theft and fraud with the state attorney's office. As I signed paper after paper, I felt like I was signing Patricia out of my life with each stroke of the pen. "One more thing," Catherine said as I prepared to leave. "You mentioned your cousin Marcus is a lawyer who initially contacted you on Patricia's behalf." "Yes, but he backed off when he learned the truth." "Good. I'll be sending him a letter regarding his initial threat of legal action. He should have investigated before making accusations. It'll ensure he thinks twice before enabling her again." I left Catherine's office feeling armed and protected for the first time in years. My next stop was a police station, where I filed formal reports for identity theft and fraud. The detective, a woman named Rivera, took my statement with professional sympathy. "Woisha, family financial abuse is more common than people think," she said, scanning my documentation. "The fact that you have this much evidence is helpful. We'll coordinate with the bank's fraud department and your attorney." As I sat in that sterile interrogation room recounting Patricia's crimes to a stranger with a badge, I couldn't help but think how different this Christmas was from all the others. No pretense, no performance, just cold legal reality. My phone rang. Dad. "Rosalie, I just got served with divorce papers. Patricia filed first claiming I abandoned her and committed financial abuse by freezing the accounts." "Are you okay?" "Honestly relieved. My lawyer says her claims are baseless, especially given the evidence of her fraud. But Rosalie, she's claiming the house is solely hers. Says she's been the only one maintaining it." The audacity was breathtaking. The house she'd nearly lost to foreclosure, saved only by my payments, was now her sole property in her mind. "Dad, Catherine Walsh is my attorney. She's excellent. You should coordinate with your lawyer to share evidence." "Already done. We met this morning." "Rosalie, I'm sorry you're having to deal with this, with lawyers and police, and this isn't what family should be." "No," I agreed. "But this isn't family. This is cleaning up the aftermath of a 20-year con game." After hanging up, I drove to my bank to meet with their fraud department. Martha, the branch manager, had assembled a team to review my accounts. The damage was worse than I'd initially thought. "She's been slowly siphoning money for years," the fraud investigator explained, showing me a forensic analysis of my accounts. "Small amounts here and there, always just below the threshold that would trigger alerts. We're looking at approximately $30,000 in unauthorized transfers over 4 years. $30,000 stolen in dribs and drabs while I was paying her mortgage." The violations felt endless, each revelation another cut. "We'll be pressing charges on behalf of the bank as well," Martha assured me. "This level of fraud impacts our federal insurance." She'll be facing both state and federal charges. My phone buzzed constantly throughout the meeting. Marcus had received Catherine's letter and was backpedaling frantically, claiming he'd been manipulated. Jennifer texted updates from the extended family meltdown. Madison sent screenshots of Patricia's increasingly unhinged Facebook posts, which Catherine had advised her to document. The latest post read, "Betrayed by my own flesh and blood on Christmas. Abandoned by the family I gave everything to. If something happens to me, know that I loved you all despite your cruelty." "That's a suicide threat," the fraud investigator said, reading over my shoulder. "You need to report that for a welfare check." I called the non-emergency police line reporting the concerning post. Within an hour, Tyler texted that police had arrived at the house. Patricia had answered the door in full makeup and her best dress, playing the confused victim. She was fine, just emotionally devastated by her family's betrayal. By afternoon, the full scope of Patricia's retaliation became clear. She'd called my employer claiming I'd embezzled money. She'd contacted Sarah's workplace with concerns about her friend's stability. She'd even called Mr. Williams's daughter overseas, telling her that her elderly father was being taken advantage of by a neighbor. Each attack was handled swiftly. My employer laughed off the accusation, knowing my impeccable record. Sarah's boss dismissed the call as obvious harassment. Mr. Williams' daughter thankfully knew her father well enough to recognize lies. But the pattern was clear. Patricia was trying to destroy anyone who'd supported me. Catherine called with updates. The state attorney is taking the case. With the bank fraud, identity theft, and mortgage fraud, we're looking at serious charges. They'll likely offer a plea deal, but she's facing potential prison time. Well, what about the house? That's complicated. The forged refinance documents mean that loan might be invalid. The bank will have to sort that out. But any equity would go to creditors first, including you, for the stolen funds and paid mortgage. As evening approached, I sat in my apartment surrounded by legal documents, police reports, and evidence of a life built on lies. The Christmas tree Sarah had insisted I get twinkled in the corner, a small beacon of normalcy in the chaos. Madison arrived around 6, looking exhausted. Mom's been calling me non-stop, alternating between saying she's dying and threatening to disown me. I had to block her number. "I'm sorry you're going through this," I said, meaning it. No one should have to choose between truth and their mother. "But that's just it," Madison said, accepting the wine I offered. "She's not acting like a mother. She's acting like a cornered criminal. Did you know she called my boss today, told them I was mentally unstable and shouldn't be trusted with money?" Another attack, another attempt to destroy anyone who wouldn't enable her fiction. "What did your boss say?" That they'd already received 3 similar calls about other employees and recognized harassment when they saw it. They're considering pressing charges too. The wine turned bitter in my mouth. Patricia was creating her own avalanche of consequences, each desperate move bringing more legal scrutiny, more criminal charges, more evidence of her true nature. Tyler arrived an hour later with dinner and news. Dad found more hidden accounts. Apparently, Mom's been getting disability payments for the last 2 years, claiming chronic pain, while hosting elaborate parties and posting vacation photos. Disability fraud added to the growing list of charges. "How did we not see it?" Madison asked for the 100th time. "How did we live with her and not know?" "Because children don't audit their parents," I said gently. "We trust. We love. We explain away inconsistencies. That's normal. What's not normal is a parent who sees their children as resources to exploit." My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, then recognized the area code from Patricia's childhood town. "Is this Rosalie Morrison's?" an elderly voice asked. "I'm Agnes Fletcher. I knew your mother growing up. I heard about what's happening from Helen." "I'm sorry you're being dragged into this family drama." "Oh, honey, this isn't new. Your mother was the same at 16. Stole money from the church fundraiser and blamed it on another girl. Convinced everyone the girl was lying until security footage proved otherwise. The family left town in shame, but Patricia never faced consequences. Her parents always bailed her out." A pattern stretching back decades. Patricia had been perfecting this con since high school, always finding new marks, new enablers, new victims. "I thought you should know," Agnes continued. "Sometimes people think behavior like this comes from nowhere, but your mother's been this way her whole life. It's not your fault. It's not something you could have fixed with enough love or money." After thanking Agnes and ending the call, I sat with that truth. Patricia's deceptions weren't a response to hardship or desperation. They were her nature, as fundamental as eye color or height. I hadn't failed to save her. She'd never wanted saving, only funding. Catherine texted with a final update for the day. "Arrest warrant issued. She'll likely be picked up tomorrow. Be prepared for escalation." I looked around my small apartment, double-checking locks, closing blinds. Tomorrow, Patricia would be arrested for the crimes she'd committed against me and others. The performance of her lifetime would end with handcuffs and mugshots. But tonight, I sat with Tyler and Madison, 3 siblings, discovering what family meant when stripped of manipulation and lies. We ordered Chinese food and watched old home videos, looking for signs we'd missed, moments of truth in the elaborate fiction of our childhood. "Look." Tyler pointed at the screen showing Christmas morning 15 years ago. See how she's watching to make sure the camera catches her giving gifts. Even then, it was about the image. We're going to be okay, Madison said quietly. All of us, even her eventually, but we're going to be okay. As midnight approached, I thought about Patricia alone in the house I'd saved from foreclosure. Was she packing, planning to run, writing more social media posts proclaiming her victimhood? Or was she finally in the silence of consequences, facing the truth of what she'd done? I'd likely never know. Tomorrow would bring arrests and arraignments, charges and consequences. But tonight, in my small apartment with my real family, I was already free. December 27th dawned with the kind of bitter cold that makes breathing hurt. I was nursing my first coffee when Catherine called at 7:15, her voice professionally calm but urgent. Patricia was arrested an hour ago. She's being held pending arraignment this afternoon. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I set down my mug carefully, my hands surprisingly steady. How did she react? According to the arrest report, she claimed it was a misunderstanding and demanded to speak to the chief of police, who she insisted was a family friend. He wasn't. She's being charged with identity theft, wire fraud, forgery, and theft by deception. The federal charges are still pending. After Catherine hung up, I sat in the winter morning silence, waiting to feel something. Guilt, relief, vindication. Instead, I felt only a hollow sadness for the mother who'd chosen greed over love, image over family. My phone exploded with texts as news of the arrest spread through the family grapevine. Aunt Barbara called first, breathless with shock and something that sounded like excitement. Rosalie, I just heard about Patricia. This is terrible. Although, well, I have to tell you something. She borrowed $5,000 from me last year for emergency surgery, but I saw her at the casino the next week. I'm sorry, Aunt Barbara. You should file a police report. The detective handling the case is Rivera. Oh, I will, but that's not all. Your cousin Amy called me this morning. Patricia's been holding her grandmother's china set, claiming she was keeping it safe. Amy asked for it back for her daughter's wedding, and Patricia said it was accidentally sold. But Amy saw it in Patricia's dining room last month. The floodgates had opened. Each family member who'd been nursing private suspicions or swallowing small losses suddenly felt empowered to speak. My phone rang continuously as relatives confessed their own experiences with Patricia's deceptions. Uncle Thomas called next, his gruff voice uncharacteristically shaky. Your aunt's jewelry, Rosalie, my mother's engagement ring and her pearl necklace. Patricia said she'd put them in a safety deposit box after Mom died. Been asking about them for 10 years, always got excuses. You think they're gone? I'm sorry, Uncle Thomas. Yes, they're probably gone. Madison arrived at my apartment by 9 carrying a box of documents. I stayed up all night going through Mom's files. Look what I found. She spread papers across my dining table like evidence in a crime documentary. Bank statements for accounts we'd never known existed, receipts for luxury items dated during times Patricia claimed poverty. Most damning, a notebook in Patricia's handwriting detailing her schemes. She kept records, Madison said, voice hollow with disbelief, like she was proud of it. Look, here's an entry from 3 years ago. Convinced R to pay mortgage. D still believes it's temporary. Perfect setup. R for Rosalie. D for Daniel. We were just initials in her con artist notebook marks to be managed and milked. Tyler arrived as we were sorting through the papers, his laptop under his arm. I've been checking Mom's social media history. She's been running smaller scams for years through Facebook Marketplace and community groups, selling items she never owned, taking deposits for services she never provided. He showed us screenshot after screenshot. Patricia selling authentic designer purses that were clearly fakes, offering to coordinate events for deposits she'd pocket. A wedding planning service that existed only long enough to collect retainer fees? How many victims are there? Madison asked, overwhelmed by the scope. Dozens that I can find, Tyler said. Maybe more. She was smart about it never taking enough from one person to trigger serious investigation. Until you, Rosalie. You were her whale. Dad arrived at noon looking older, but somehow lighter. He carried his own box of evidence. I've been going through 28 years of marriage looking for the truth inside the lies. Found some interesting things. He pulled out their wedding album opening to a page near the back. Remember how she always said her parents died when she was young, found this at the courthouse. He showed us a marriage certificate with Patricia's parents listed as witnesses. They were alive at our wedding. She cut them off years before I met her. Why would she lie about that? Madison asked. Same reason she lies about everything, Tyler said bitterly. Control, sympathy, making herself the victim. My phone rang. Agnes Fletcher again, the woman who'd known Patricia in high school. Rosalie. I've been making calls. Found 12 people from our hometown who want to share their stories about your mother. The church fundraiser was just the beginning. She ran a fake cancer fundraiser for herself at 17, convinced the whole town she was dying. Kept the money when her miraculous recovery happened. I put her on speaker so everyone could hear. Agnes continued. Her parents finally sent her to live with relatives here when the police started investigating. That's probably when she started telling people they were dead. Easier than explaining why they wanted nothing to do with her. Each revelation was another piece of the puzzle showing Patricia's lifetime pattern of deception. She hadn't broken under pressure or turned to fraud out of desperation. This was who she'd always been. Cousin Amy arrived with Aunt Barbara, both carrying documents. Amy had found receipts showing Patricia had sold the family china on eBay years ago, keeping the profits while claiming it was accidentally discarded. Aunt Barbara brought casino footage showing Patricia at the slots the day after receiving the emergency surgery loan. I was too embarrassed to say anything, Barbara admitted. Thought I was the only fool who'd fallen for her sob stories. That's how she operated, Helen said, arriving with coffee and sandwiches for everyone. Isolation, making each victim think they were alone, too ashamed to compare notes. Classic con artist tactics. As the afternoon wore on, my apartment became a strange sort of truth and reconciliation commission. Family members arrived with evident stories and years of suppressed suspicions. The dining table filled with documents chronicling decades of Patricia's frauds. Jennifer brought bank statements showing Patricia had been cashing checks meant for their deceased grandmother's care facility, pocketing thousands, while claiming the home was paid through Medicare. Uncle Robert had documentation of tools and equipment Patricia had sold while telling him they were stolen. Even distant relatives had stories. Borrowed wedding dresses, never returned deposit money for family reunions, that disappeared heirloom jewelry that vanished during holiday visits. I found something else, Madison said, pulling out a folder marked life insurance in Patricia's handwriting. Inside were policies on all of us, each worth significant amounts. She's been paying premiums on these for years. I'm not even sure they're legal since we didn't consent. Dad examined them closely. These signatures are forged. She took out life insurance on her own children and husband without our knowledge. The implications sent chills through the room. How far would Patricia's desperation have driven? Her Catherine needed to know about this immediately. By evening, Detective Rivera arrived to take statements. She'd been fielding calls all day from Patricia's various victims. We're looking at potentially upgrading charges to include organized fraud. The scope of this is beyond typical family financial abuse. She's interviewed each family member, taking notes and collecting evidence. The box of documents grew to 3 boxes, then 4. Decades of deception documented in receipts, forged signatures, and stolen property. In 20 years of law enforcement, Rivera said finally, I've rarely seen family fraud this extensive. Your mother ran your family like a criminal enterprise. As she prepared to leave, she turned to me. You know you probably saved lives by exposing this financial criminals who go unchecked, often escalate. Those life insurance policies, that's a red flag we take very seriously. After Rivera left, We sat in exhausted silence. The apartment that had felt small now seemed to hold our entire family history, rewritten with truth instead of Patricia's fiction. "What happens now?" Tyler asked. "To us, I mean. We're the family of a criminal. How do we move forward?" "We rebuild," Helen said firmly, "on truth this time. No secrets, no enabling, no looking away from uncomfortable realities." "I keep thinking about nature versus nurture," Madison said quietly. "Were we doomed from the start? Will we end up like her?" "No," Dad said with surprising strength. "You three have proven that already. When faced with the truth, you chose honesty over comfort. You chose each other over the easy lie. That's not Patricia's nature. That's mine. That's your grandmother Ellen's. That's who you really are." My phone buzzed with a message from Catherine. "Patricia's arraignment is set for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bail hearing to follow. Given the flight risk and scope of charges, the prosecutor is recommending no bail. Be prepared for media attention." Media attention. Of course. The prominent family matriarch exposed as a decades-long fraud would make headlines. Patricia would finally have the spotlight she'd always craved, though not in the way she'd imagined. "We should prepare a statement," I said. "Something simple asking for privacy while we cooperate with authorities." "No," Tyler said suddenly. "No more hiding. No more protecting the family image. We tell the truth. All of it. Maybe it helps other families recognize the signs. Maybe it prevents another me from wasting 28 years enabling a criminal because she's mom." As the family dispersed for the night, each carrying their own load of difficult truths, I stood at my window watching snow fall on the city. Tomorrow, Patricia would face a judge. The performance of her lifetime would play out in a courtroom instead of a living room. But tonight, for the first time in decades, the Morrison family was honest. Broken and reformed, smaller but stronger, we'd found each other in the ruins of Patricia's empire of lies. Tomorrow would bring consequences and headlines, but tonight brought something more valuable: truth. The morning of Patricia's arraignment arrived with freezing rain that turned the world into a sheet of glass. I picked up Madison and Tyler at 7:30, all of us dressed professionally, understanding that today would mark a turning point we couldn't come back from. "I couldn't sleep," Madison confessed, clutching a travel mug of coffee. "I kept going through Mom's notebook. Did you know she had ratings for each of us? Like we were marks to score. I was too emotional, but malleable. Tyler was useful for sympathy plays. You were primary revenue handle carefully." Tyler stared out the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. I found more life insurance documents hidden in my room. Policies on people I don't even know. Mrs. Chen from the restaurant, Janet from the florist. Random people she'd met who she thought might die profitably. The courthouse was already busy when we arrived. Reporters gathered despite the early hour. Patricia Morrison, prominent community member and church volunteer, arrested for massive fraud, made irresistible headlines. Catherine met us at a side entrance, guiding us past the cameras. "She's retained Howard Stern," Catherine informed us, naming one of the city's most aggressive defense attorneys. "He's going to paint her as a desperate mother who made mistakes trying to provide for her family." "With what money?" Madison asked. "Everything's frozen." "That's what we're about to find out." The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, all wood paneling and uncomfortable benches. Patricia entered in an orange jumpsuit, her usual perfect appearance replaced by reality. No makeup could hide the harsh fluorescent lighting. No designer clothes could disguise the handcuffs. She saw us, and her face transformed, cycling through emotions like a slot machine seeking the right combination. Hurt, anger, disappointment, and finally settling on wounded maternal love. Even now she was performing. The prosecutor, a stern woman named Lydia Chang, outlined the charges with clinical precision. 23 counts of identity theft, 18 counts of wire fraud, 12 counts of forgery. The numbers rolled on like a ticker tape of deception. Your Honor, Chang continued, we have evidence of Mrs. Morrison maintaining multiple fraudulent identifies stealing from family members, including her own children, and operating what amounts to a decades-long criminal enterprise. We request no bail due to extreme flight risk and danger to the community. Howard Stern rose, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. Your Honor, my client is a devoted mother and community pillar who made regrettable decisions during a family financial crisis. She has deep ties to this community, volunteers at 3 charities, and poses no flight risk. Volunteers with stolen money, Tyler muttered. Judge Martinez, a woman who looked like she'd seen every possible human failing, reviewed the documents before her. Mr. Stern, I'm looking at evidence of systematic fraud spanning 20 years. This isn't a momentary lapse in judgment. Mental illness, Your Honor. Stern pivoted smoothly. My client suffers from severe anxiety and depression leading to compulsive behaviors. We're requesting a psychological evaluation and reasonable bail to allow her to seek treatment. Patricia nodded along suddenly, the picture of fragile mental health. I watched her transform again, becoming whatever she thought would save her. I'll allow a psychiatric evaluation, Judge Martinez decided. But given the scope of alleged crimes and evidence of hidden assets, bail is set at $500,000 cash only. The defendant will surrender her passport and be subject to electronic monitoring. Patricia's mask slipped, revealing raw fury before Stern touched her arm, reminding her of the performance. She composed herself, becoming the wounded mother again. As they led her out, she looked directly at us, mouthing, "How could you—" The accusation might have stung if I hadn't spent the previous evening reading her notebook, seeing how she'd reduced us to profit margins and manipulation strategies. Outside the courtroom, Stern approached us with oily charm. This doesn't have to destroy your family. With your cooperation, we could arrange a plea deal, mental health treatment instead of prison. Your mother needs help, not incarceration. Our cooperation, Madison laughed bitterly. You mean lying for her, pretending she's sick instead of criminal? Your mother is sick, Stern insisted. No healthy person does what she's accused of. Save it for the jury, Tyler said, surprising us with his firmness. We've spent our whole lives making excuses for her. We're done. Stern's expression hardened. Then you'll be destroying your mother on the witness stand, living with that for the rest of your lives. We'll live with the truth, I said. That's more than she ever gave us. Catherine guided us away from Stern, but not before he delivered a parting shot. She knows things about all of you, secrets you thought were private. Consider carefully before you testify against her. In the car, we sat in silence, processing the threat wrapped in legal language. Patricia, the mother, had kept our confidences. Patricia, the cornered criminal, would weaponize them. What could she possibly know that's worse than what she's done? Madison finally asked. It doesn't matter, Tyler said. Whatever secrets we have, they're ours. We own them. She can't hurt us with truth when she's built everything on lies. Back at my apartment, we found Dad waiting with news. The house is being foreclosed on. With the fraudulent refinance and missed payments, the bank's calling in everything. We have 30 days to vacate. Where will you go? I asked. Helen's offered me her guest house, just until I figure things out. 28 years of life to sort through, and most of it built on Patricia's lies. Madison pulled out her laptop. Speaking of lies, I've been investigating those charities Mom supposedly volunteers for. Her screen showed 3 organizations, all with Patricia listed on their boards. I called them. She hasn't shown up for meetings in 2 years, but she's still been collecting board member benefits and expense reimbursements. Add it to the charges, I said wearily. How deep does this go? Deeper than we thought, Tyler said, pulling up his own research. Remember how Mom always said she graduated summa cum laude from Michigan State. They have no record of her graduating at all. She attended for 2 semesters and dropped out. Another fundamental lie. Patricia had lectured us about education while faking her own credentials. The woman who demanded academic excellence had been a college dropout playing dress-up in other people's achievements. My phone rang. Marcus, our lawyer cousin who'd initially threatened me on Patricia's behalf. Rosalie, I owe you an apology, a real one. I've been going through my records and Patricia's been using my name without permission, writing legal threats, giving legal advice, even attempting to file documents with forged letterhead. My license could be in jeopardy. Document everything and give it to Detective Rivera, I advised. Already done, but there's more. She came to me 6 months ago wanting help hiding assets. I refused, told her it was illegal. She said she was joking, but now I realize she was planning this. Planning to run. The psychiatric evaluation would paint Patricia as impulsive, driven by mental illness to make desperate choices. But the evidence showed calculation, planning, preparation for flight. She'd known her house of cards would eventually collapse and had been preparing her escape. As evening approached, we ordered Thai food and settled in for what had become our new normal, sorting through evidence of Patricia's crimes while trying to maintain our sanity. Dad had brought more boxes from the house, each one revealing new layers of deception. Look at this, Madison said, holding up a photo album. Our baby pictures, but half of them aren't us. She bought stock photos and mixed them in. Who does that? Someone creating a character, Tyler said. The perfect mother with the perfect family. We weren't her children. We were props in her performance. That's not true, Dad said firmly. Whatever else she is, she did love you in her way. It was twisted, selfish love, but she felt something for her children. How can you defend her after everything? Madison asked. I'm not defending her. I'm trying to understand her. 28 years of marriage, and I never really knew my wife. But I saw moments, glimpses of something real underneath the performance. They were rare and fleeting, but they existed. Maybe that's worse, I said, if she was capable of real emotion but chose manipulation instead. Tyler discovered a folder labeled Exit Strategy, hidden in his childhood desk. Inside were detailed plans for disappearing fake IDs in various stages of completion, research on countries without extradition, treaties, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. She was going to abandon us, he said quietly. Take everything and vanish. When? Madison asked, though we all knew the answer. As soon as she'd extracted maximum value, I said. We weren't family to her. We were investments, and she was planning her exit before the market crashed. The doorbell interrupted our grim discoveries. Sarah arrived with wine and dessert, followed by Helen, Greg, and surprisingly Jennifer, with her teenage daughter Emma. I wanted Emma to see this, Jennifer explained, to understand what family secrets can do. We've been too good at keeping quiet in this family. Time for some truth. As the evening progressed, our small apartment filled with 3 generations of Morrisons, all touched by Patricia's deceptions. Emma, 17 and wide-eyed, listened as we laid out the truth her mother had shielded her from. Aunt Patricia always gave the best presents, Emma said slowly. Mom, did she buy those with stolen money? Yes, Jennifer confirmed. Every gift came with a hidden cost. The jewelry she gave me for my 16th birthday, probably your great-grandmother's, claimed to be lost. Emma removed the necklace she was wearing, Patricia's gift from last Christmas, staring at it like it might bite her. I don't want it anymore. Keep it, I suggested, but remember what it really represents. Let it remind you to look deeper than surface generosity. As midnight approached, Tyler stood up with an announcement. I've been thinking about what Stern said, about Mom knowing our secrets, and I realized I don't care. So here's mine. I'm gay, have been forever. Mom knew and used it as a weapon, threatening to out me whenever I pushed back against her schemes. Well, I'm out now. She can't hurt me with my own truth anymore. Madison hugged him fiercely. We knew, Tyler. We've known for years. We were just waiting for you to be ready. Mom said you'd all reject me. Said the family couldn't handle the shame. Mom lied, Dad said simply, about everything, including that. One by one, we shared secrets Patricia had held over us. Madison's teenage pregnancy and abortion, Dad's brief affair during a rough patch 15 years ago, my early career failures that Patricia had painted as successes while privately mocking them. Each revelation defanged Patricia's potential weapon's truth, taking the power from her threats. We should write it all down, Jennifer suggested. Everything she did, everything we discovered. Not for revenge, but for recognition, so other families can see the signs. A book, Madison asked. Maybe, or just a record. So this ends with us, so the next generation knows what to watch for. As our impromptu family gathering wound down, I looked around at these people bound by blood and betrayal, now choosing to bond through truth. Patricia had tried to isolate us, make us compete for her approval, keep us too ashamed to compare notes. Instead, her arrest had brought us together in ways her manipulative gatherings never had. "You talk same time next week?" Tyler asked, pizza and evidence sorting. "It's a date." Everyone agreed. After they left, I sat with the journal Madison had given me for Christmas, writing down the day's revelations. Patricia would have her psychiatric evaluation, her expensive lawyer, her performance of mental illness, but we had something more powerful, each other and the truth. Whatever came next, we'd face it together, no longer the fractured family she'd created, but something new forged in the fire of her destruction. The siblings who'd been trained to enable were learning to support instead. The family built on lies was rebuilding on truth. And somewhere in a holding cell, Patricia sat alone with her schemes and manipulations, finally facing the one audience she couldn't con herself. January 15th arrived with the kind of bright winter sun that makes snow blindness a real concern. The courthouse steps were clear of ice, but crawling with reporters as Patricia's trial began. 3 weeks of preparation had led to this moment, and our family arrived united but anxious. Catherine had coached us thoroughly. "Tell the truth, only the truth, and don't let Stern rattle you. He'll try to paint Patricia as a victim of mental illness and family abandonment. Stay focused on facts." The courtroom filled quickly. Patricia's church friends occupied one section, many wearing buttons with her photo from happier times. The other side held her victims, relatives she'd stolen from business owners she'd defrauded, community members she'd conned. The physical divide in the room told the story of two Patricias, the performance and the reality. Patricia entered in a conservative gray suit, the orange jumpsuit replaced thanks to the bail her mystery benefactor had posted. She'd lost weight, styled her hair differently, applied makeup to appear wan and fragile. The transformation into wounded defendant was complete. "Oh, she looks sick," Madison whispered. "She looks strategic," I corrected. Prosecutor Chang opened with devastating simplicity, laying out 20 years of fraud with spreadsheets and timelines that turned Patricia's life into a ledger of lies. The numbers were staggering when presented collectively: $487,000 stolen or defrauded, 39 victims, identified 112 instances of forgery. "This wasn't desperation," Chang stated. "This was profession." Patricia Morrison made a career of exploiting trust, and her favorite targets were those who loved her most. Howard Stern's defense began with a slideshow of Patricia, the devoted mother, school events, birthday parties, holiday gatherings. Each photo I recognized as carefully staged, but to the jury, they painted a picture of maternal dedication. "Mental illness doesn't announce itself," Stern intoned. "It creeps in, slowly corrupting judgment, distorting reality. Patricia Morrison suffers from severe narcissistic personality disorder coupled with compulsive behaviors. She needs treatment, not prison." The first witness was Dr. Carl Hoffman, the court-appointed psychiatrist. His evaluation was clinical and damning. "Mrs. Morrison exhibits classic antisocial personality traits. She understands right from wrong but believes rules don't apply to her. This isn't mental illness preventing judgment. It's a character disorder that enjoys the game." Stern attacked hard, bringing his own expert who diagnosed Patricia with everything from bipolar disorder to PTSD, from childhood trauma. The battle of the experts created enough confusion that I saw some jurors taking extensive notes. Then came the victim testimony. Aunt Barbara took the stand first, describing the emergency surgery loan that funded casino trips. Her voice shook as she admitted, "I thought I was helping family. Patricia cried in my living room about maybe having cancer. How do you say no to that?" Uncle Thomas followed, detailing the missing jewelry and decades of excuses. Jennifer testified about the stolen china and borrowed wedding dress never returned. Each story built upon the last, creating an avalanche of evidence that Patricia had systematically robbed her family for decades. But the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source. Agnes Fletcher, Patricia's high school classmate, had flown in from Arizona. "I've waited 40 years to tell this story." She began describing the teenage Patricia who faked cancer for profit. "She destroyed my friend Linda's life, blamed her for stealing the fundraiser money. Linda's family left town in disgrace. Last year, Linda died by suicide, still carrying the shame of something she never did." The courtroom went silent. Patricia's teenage crime had claimed a life decades later, the ripple effects of her cruelty extending far beyond financial loss. On the third day, it was our turn. Tyler went first, his newfound confidence evident as he described years of manipulation and the life insurance policies taken out without consent. "She didn't see us as children. We were assets to be leveraged, risks to be insured against." Madison followed, reading excerpts from Patricia's notebook where she'd rated and analyzed family members like a stock portfolio. I found my own entry from age 12. She wrote, "Madison shows promise for emotional manipulation. Practice guilt triggers." I was 12 and my mother was strategizing how to use me. Dad's testimony was the hardest to watch. 28 years of marriage reduced to a catalog of deceptions, from the forged refinancing to the fake death of her parents. "I loved someone who didn't exist," he said simply. "The Patricia I married was a character she played until she didn't need to anymore." When my turn came, I focused on facts over feelings. The mortgage payments, the catering bills, the systematic theft disguised as family support. I showed the jury bank statements, credit reports, the Christmas exile that started it all. "Did you ever suspect?" Chang asked. "No, I thought I was helping family through hard times. The idea that my mother was stealing while I sacrificed never occurred to me. What child assumes their parent is a criminal?" Stern's cross-examination was brutal. "Isn't it true you resented your mother's dependence, that you complained about the financial burden?" "I never complained to her or anyone else." "But you felt burdened." "I felt responsible. There's a difference." Responsible enough to abandon your family at Christmas, to vindictively cancel celebrations, knowing children would suffer. I honored their request to exclude me. Natural consequences aren't vindictive. He tried another angle. "Your mother says you promised to always take care of the family. Was that promise a lie?" "My mother says many things, as this trial has shown her relationship with truth is complicated." But you did promise?" "I promised my father I'd help with the mortgage temporarily. I never promised to fund my mother's fraud indefinitely." The sparring continued for 2 hours, Stern trying to paint me as cold and calculating while I stuck to facts. Finally, Judge Martinez intervened. Mr. Stern badgering the witness about honoring a promise to fund criminal activity is inappropriate. Move on. Patricia took the stand on day 4 and her performance was masterful. She cried at the right moments, appeared confused when convenient, and painted herself as a desperate mother who'd made terrible mistakes trying to keep her family together. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she sobbed. "The pressure of maintaining our lifestyle of being the perfect mother everyone expected. I cracked. I need help, not punishment." But Chang's cross-examination revealed the calculating mind beneath the tears. She presented Patricia's notebook. Her exit strategy documents the evidence of decades-long planning. "This isn't someone who cracked under pressure," Chang stated. "This is someone who viewed crime as a career path. Tell me, Mrs. Morrison, how does mental illness explain fake IDs and multiple names?" Patricia's mask slipped. "Those were for safety, in case my husband became abusive." "The husband you were planning to frame for your financial crimes." Chang showed the jury documents where Patricia had practiced forging Daniel's signature with notes about making it believable for investigators. "That's not... I was confused." "Confused when you took out life insurance on your children without their knowledge. Confused when you tried to access your mother's education fund for Rosalie 6 times with forged documents. Which parts were confusion and which were calculated theft?" Patricia's attorney objected repeatedly, but the damage was done. Each question revealed another layer of planning that mental illness couldn't explain away. The closing arguments took most of day 5. Stern painted Patricia as a victim of her own damaged psychology, a woman who needed therapy, not incarceration. He emphasized her community service, her role as a mother, the tragedy of a family destroyed by mental illness. Chang's closing was surgical in its precision. "The defense wants you to believe Patricia Morrison is sick, but illness doesn't forge signatures with practice sheets. Illness doesn't maintain spreadsheets of family members' financial vulnerabilities. Illness doesn't plan exit strategies to countries without extradition. This is criminality pure and simple dressed up as maternal desperation." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. As we waited in the courthouse cafeteria, Madison asked quietly, "What if they believe her? What if she walks away from all this?" "Then we did our part," Dad said. "We told the truth. That's all we could do." "But what if—" The bailiff interrupted, calling us back. The jury had reached a verdict. Patricia stood as the foreman read her performance of fragile suffering intact until the end. "On count 1 identity theft in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. On count 2 wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty." The guilties mounted like hammer blows. 23 counts of identity theft, all guilty. 18 counts of wire fraud, all guilty. 12 counts of forgery, all guilty. The jury had seen through the performance to the criminal beneath. Patricia swayed, gripping the defense table. For the first time since this began, she looked genuinely shocked. Perhaps she'd believed her own lies so completely that she thought others would too. Judge Martinez scheduled sentencing for the following month and revoked bail due to flight risk. As the bailiffs approached with handcuffs, Patricia turned to us, her mask completely gone. "I curse you all," she hissed, the loving mother character abandoned. "Every misfortune that befalls you is my wish. You destroyed your mother for money. Remember that." "No," I said loud enough for the courtroom to hear. "We revealed a criminal for truth. Remember that." They led her away, her curses echoing down the hallway until a door slammed shut, cutting off the sound. The performance of Patricia Morrison, loving mother and community pillar, was over. What remained was just another number in an orange jumpsuit. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. We'd prepared a statement delivered by Dad with quiet dignity. "Our family has been through an ordeal no one should face. We're grateful for the jury's service and hope Patricia gets the help she needs. Now we ask for privacy as we heal and rebuild." That evening, we gathered at my new apartment, a 2-bedroom I'd finally been able to afford without Patricia's drain on my finances. The space wasn't large, but it was honest, decorated with our real family photos and genuine memories. "She'll appeal," Catherine warned. "Stern's already filed the paperwork, but the evidence is overwhelming. The conviction will stand." "What about the other states?" Tyler asked. "The places she ran scams before moving here?" "Now that she's convicted, other jurisdictions are interested. She may face additional charges." As Catherine left, we sat with the strange reality of winning a victory none of us had wanted. Patricia was going to prison. Her empire of deception finally collapsed, but she was still our mother, the woman who'd raised us even while robbing us. "Do you think she ever loved us?" Madison asked. "Really loved us, not just as things to use?" "I think she loved us the only way she could," Dad answered. "Like a dragon loves its hoard, possessively, jealously, but without understanding that love means more than ownership." My phone buzzed with a text from Pastor Williams. "The congregation is praying for your family's healing. Patricia's victims here are establishing a support fund for those she hurt most. Sometimes grace comes from unexpected places." I shared the message with the others, and we sat in contemplative silence. Patricia had spent decades taking from others. Now others were giving back, not because they had to, but because community meant more than one person's crimes against it. "We survived her," Tyler said finally. "All of us. That matters." "We did more than survive," I corrected. "We chose truth over comfortable lies. We chose each other over enabling dysfunction. We chose to grow beyond what she tried to make us." As the evening progressed, we talked about the future. Dad's divorce would be final soon. Tyler was starting therapy to deal with years of manipulation. Madison was applying to graduate school, finally free to pursue her dreams without Patricia's sabotage. I was expanding my role at work, no longer held back by financial chains. The woman who tried to destroy us had instead forged us into something stronger. Her conviction wasn't an ending but a beginning, the first day of lives lived in truth instead of performance. Somewhere in a holding cell, Patricia sat alone with the consequences of her choices. But in my apartment, surrounded by the family she'd tried to fracture, we were together and free. Her curse had no power here. We'd already survived the worst she could do, and we'd survived it together. February 20th brought unseasonable warmth, the kind of false spring that makes everyone in Michigan suspicious but grateful. I stood outside the courthouse, adjusting my blazer, preparing for Patricia's sentencing hearing. 6 weeks had passed since her conviction, 6 weeks of revelations and rebuilding. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Patricia's victims filled every available seat, some I recognized, others I'd never seen before. The investigation had uncovered fraud in 3 states spanning 25 years. She'd left a trail of financial destruction from Arizona to Michigan, always moving on before consequences caught up. Patricia entered in shackles this time, the pretense of fragility abandoned. 6 weeks in county jail had hardened her performance into something bitter and defiant. She'd fired Stern, choosing to represent herself for sentencing, a decision that made even the bailiffs exchange concerned glances. Judge Martinez reviewed the pre-sentencing report with obvious displeasure. "Mrs. Morrison, I've seen many fraud cases in my career, but the scope and cruelty of yours stands apart. Stealing from your own children, attempting to frame your husband, taking out life insurance policies on unsuspecting people. The list goes on for pages." Patricia stood straighter. "Your Honor, I am the victim here. My family conspired against me, twisting normal financial arrangements into criminal accusations. Every mother makes sacrifices. Mine are being criminalized by ungrateful children." "Mrs. Morrison, you were convicted on 53 counts by a jury of your peers. This isn't about gratitude, it's about grand theft." The victim impact statements began. Agnes Fletcher had returned, bringing Linda's daughter with her. The young woman spoke about growing up without a mother, about the suicide note that mentioned being falsely accused by Patricia decades earlier. There wasn't a dry eye except Patricia's. Local victims followed. Mrs. Chen spoke about discovering Patricia had taken out life insurance on her, a customer she'd served faithfully for years. "I make her favorite meal every week, extra sauce, extra care, and she look at me and see only death profit. This breaks more than trust. This breaks faith in people." Business owners detailed elaborate scams, promised services, never delivered checks that bounced like rubber balls. Each story painted Patricia not as a desperate mother, but as a calculating predator who viewed everyone as a potential mark. Our family went last. Tyler spoke about finding his forged signature on loan documents, discovering debts he'd never incurred. Madison read a poem about growing up with a mother who saw her as an investment rather than a daughter. Dad described 28 years of marriage built on lies, finding out his wife had been planning to frame him for her crimes. I was the final speaker. I'd prepared remarks, but set them aside, speaking from the heart instead. Patricia Morrison gave birth to me, but she was never truly my mother. Mothers protect their children, she stole from us. Mothers teach honesty, she trained us in deception. Mothers sacrifice for their families. She sacrificed her family for greed. I spent years funding her lifestyle while she plotted against me. I don't seek revenge, only justice. Not just for us, but for future victims she'll never have the chance to create. When Patricia's turn came, she launched into a rambling speech about persecution and conspiracy. She accused me of orchestrating everything for inheritance. Money claimed Tyler was lying about his sexuality. For sympathy, insisted Madison had mental problems that made her testimony unreliable. Each accusation grew wilder until Judge Martinez cut her off. Enough. Mrs. Morrison, you show no remorse, accept no responsibility, and continue to blame everyone but yourself. This court has considered your age, your previously clean record, and the psychological evaluations. However, the severity and scope of your crimes combined with your complete lack of accountability require significant consequences. The judge continued, on the counts of identity theft, I sentence you to 15 years. On the wire fraud charges, 12 years. On the forgery charges, 8 years. Sentences to run concurrently, total imprisonment of 15 years with possibility of parole after serving 85%. You are also ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, though this court recognizes that may be impossible given the amounts involved. Patricia's defiance cracked. 15 years I'll die in there. This is murder. This is justice, Judge Martinez corrected. And frankly, Mrs. Morrison, you're fortunate the federal charges were consolidated here. You could have faced decades more. Court is adjourned. As they led Patricia away, she turned to us one final time. But instead of curses or pleas, she simply stared as if seeing us clearly for the first time. Then she was gone. The woman who dominated our lives reduced to a number in the correctional system. Outside, victims gathered in small groups, sharing contact information and promises to support each other. Mrs. Chen hugged me tightly. You brave girl, you save many people from future hurt. Agnes Fletcher approached with Linda's daughter. Thank you, the young woman said simply. My mother never got justice. At least now I know the truth was told. Back at my apartment, the family convened for what had become our weekly dinner. The dining table that once held evidence of Patricia's crimes now hosted normal family meals. Dad had sold the house using what little equity remained after debts to help victims who'd never see restitution. He looked healthier, freed from the constant performance Patricia had demanded. The divorce is final next week, he announced. My lawyer says it's the fastest she's ever seen pushed through. Turns out judges don't look kindly on spouses who forge signatures and plan frame jobs. Tyler had news too. I got the promotion at work. Turns out when you're not depressed and hiding, you actually perform better. Who knew? He'd moved into his own apartment, finally experiencing independence at 28. The man-child Patricia had cultivated was growing up rapidly without her influence. Madison pulled out acceptance letters from 3 graduate programs. I couldn't decide, but then I realized I've never made a major decision without Mom's manipulation, so I chose the one that felt right to me, not what would look good to others. Which one? I asked. Social work with a focus on financial abuse recovery. If I can help one family avoid what we went through, it's worth it. We toasted with wine that wasn't bought with stolen money in a home that wasn't built on lies. The conversation flowed naturally, no longer careful performances for Patricia's approval, but genuine connection between survivors. "I've been thinking about forgiveness," Dad said suddenly. "Not for her sake, but for ours. Carrying hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I don't forgive what she did, but I forgive myself for enabling it." "I'm not there yet," Tyler admitted. "Maybe in 15 years when she gets out." "She'll be 70, Madison calculated. "Will we visit?" "That's a decision for future US," I said. "Right now we focus on healing." Helen arrived with dessert and an announcement. "I'm opening my home to family gatherings. 20 years was too long to stay away out of fear. Patricia's gone. The family she fractured can come together again." The doorbell rang again, Jennifer with Emma carrying a laptop. "We finished the website," Emma announced proudly. "It's called Truth After Fraud. Families can share their stories, find resources, recognize warning signs." We gathered around as she showed us the site. Already dozens of families had reached out sharing eerily similar stories of financial abuse by narcissistic relatives. Patricia wasn't unique. She was part of a pattern that destroyed families across the country. "We're not alone," Madison said wonderingly. "All these people living with the same shame and secrets." "Not anymore," Jennifer said. "Silence enables abuse. Truth ends it." As the evening progressed, plans emerged. Dad would volunteer with elder fraud prevention, using his experience to help others recognize deception. Tyler was starting a support group for adult children of narcissistic parents. Madison's graduate thesis would focus on family financial abuse patterns. I was writing the book Jennifer had suggested, turning our pain into a roadmap for others. "We're turning her legacy of destruction into something constructive," Helen observed. "She'd hate that." "Good," Tyler said with satisfaction. "The best revenge is a life well lived, and we're all living better without her poison." My phone buzzed with an email from Catherine. "Thought you'd want to know. Patricia's commissary account shows she's already running gambling pools in prison. Some people never change. But you did. Be proud." I shared the message and we laughed. Even in prison, Patricia couldn't resist the grift, but it no longer affected us. She was contained, her sphere of influence reduced to fellow inmates who probably recognized a con when they saw one. As the family departed, each member hugged longer than before Patricia's arrest. We learned not to take connection for granted, not to assume tomorrow's presence. Madison lingered, helping with dishes. "Do you think we'll ever be normal?" she asked. "We're creating our own normal," I replied, "one built on truth instead of performance. That's better than what most families have." "I love you," she said suddenly. "I never said it enough before. She made us compete instead of care, but I love you, Rosalie. Thank you for breaking the cycle." We hugged in my small kitchen, sisters who'd found each other in the wreckage of our mother's deceptions. Outside, the false spring had given way to returning winter, but inside my apartment, warmth persisted. I thought about Patricia in her cell, surrounded by the consequences of her choices. 15 years was a long time, but not as long as the decades she'd spent building her criminal empire. Justice had been served imperfectly, but finally. But more than justice, we'd found truth. More than truth, we'd found each other. The family Patricia had tried to destroy had reformed stronger, built on foundations she could never understand: honesty, genuine love, and the courage to face reality without flinching. The resolution wasn't just legal, it was revolutionary. We'd overthrown the tyrant of lies and established something better in its place. Patricia's conviction was the end of her story, but it was just the beginning of ours. 6 months later, the 4th of July arrived with perfect Michigan weather. The lake house I'd rented for our family gatherings sparkled under the summer sun, a far cry from the cramped apartment where we'd sorted through Patricia's crimes. I stood on the deck, watching family arrive, each car representing another step toward healing. Dad pulled up first, looking years younger than he had during the trial. He'd gained healthy weight, his face no longer gaunt with stress. Behind him came Tyler with his boyfriend Marcus, their hands intertwined without fear or shame. Madison followed with her study group friends, all survivors of various family traumas who'd become her chosen support system. "This is beautiful, Rosalie," Dad said, embracing me, "but can we afford—" "We can afford it," I interrupted gently. "My promotion came through, and without Patricia draining my accounts, I can actually enjoy my success." The house filled with voices and laughter, genuine sounds that had been absent from our gatherings for decades. Helen arrived with her famous potato salad, and Jennifer brought her daughters, including Emma, who was documenting everything for a follow-up piece on family recovery. As we prepared lunch together, the kitchen buzzed with easy conversation. No one performed for anyone else's approval. No one worried about saying the wrong thing. The freedom was intoxicating. "I got a letter from her," Tyler announced, suddenly pulling an envelope from his pocket. "From prison." The room stilled. We'd all received letters, but none of us had shared their contents. By unspoken agreement, Tyler opened his. "My dearest Tyler," he read, his voice steady, "I pray this finds you well and that you've realized the terrible mistake you've made. I forgive you for testifying against me. A mother's love is unconditional. When you come to your senses, I'll be waiting. We can rebuild our family properly without Rosalie's toxic influence. Remember, I'm the only one who truly understands you. All my love, Mom." "Classic Patricia," Madison said, "still trying to divide us even from prison." "What did you do with yours?" Tyler asked the room. One by one we admitted to burning them, shredding them, returning them unopened. Only Dad had kept his locked in a drawer he never opened. "She writes weekly," he said, "sometimes asking for money, sometimes threatening suicide, sometimes promising she's changed. But it's always manipulation. Even her handwriting looks calculated." We performed a ceremonial burning of Tyler's letter, watching Patricia's words turn to ash and drift across the lake. It felt like an exorcism of her lingering influence. The day progressed with normal family activities. We grilled burgers, played volleyball, badly told stories that didn't revolve around trauma. Greg's parents had joined us, fully integrated into our rebuilt family. Mr. Williams from my old apartment building sat in a lawn chair dispensing grandfatherly wisdom and beating everyone at cards. "You know what I notice?" he said during a quiet moment. "You all touch each other now. Hugs, pats on the shoulder, casual affection. You never did that before." He was right. Patricia had made physical affection transactional, doled out for compliance, and withdrawn for punishment. Now we touched freely, expressing love without fear of manipulation. As sunset approached, Madison gathered us for an announcement. "I've been accepted into a doctoral program, full scholarship to study the intersection of financial abuse and family systems." We erupted in congratulations. Patricia had once told Madison she wasn't smart enough for graduate school, that she should focus on finding a wealthy husband instead. Now she was pursuing a PhD, her research already gaining recognition in academic circles. "There's more," Madison continued. "They want me to develop a treatment protocol for families recovering from financial abuse. I'll be working with other survivors, turning our experience into healing for others." Tyler had news too. "Marcus and I are moving in together, and I've been promoted to regional manager. Turns out I'm actually good at my job when I'm not depressed and hiding." The contrast was striking. Under Patricia's influence, Tyler had been an unmotivated man-child playing video games in his childhood bedroom. Free from her manipulation, he'd discovered ambition and ability he'd never known he possessed. Even Jennifer had announcements. "The website has gone international. We're getting stories from families in 12 countries. Emma's been invited to speak at a conference about youth and financial abuse awareness." Emma, now 18 and headed to college, blushed at the recognition. "It started as a way to process what happened to our family. Now it's helping thousands of others. Aunt Patricia accidentally created a movement against everything she represented. The best kind of justice, Helen observed, her destruction becoming others' construction. As fireworks began reflecting off the lake, we settled into comfortable chairs the family Patricia had tried to destroy, now stronger than ever. Dad pulled out his guitar, something he hadn't played in years. "She hated when I played," he said, tuning the strings. "Said it was noise waste of time, but I loved it once." He played songs from our childhood before Patricia's lies had poisoned everything. We sang along badly, but enthusiastically reclaiming memories she'd tried to taint. My phone buzzed with a notification from the prison email system. Patricia had sent another message. Without reading it, I deleted it and blocked the address. The others nodded approvingly. Boundaries," Madison said. "The gift that keeps on giving." As the night deepened, we shared updates on the various legal proceedings. Patricia faced charges in 2 other states, her sentence likely to extend beyond the 15 years she'd already received. The restitution process was slowly returning money to victims, though most would never see full repayment. "I've been visiting some of her other victims," Dad said, "helping them file claims, understand their rights. It's my way of making amends for enabling her for so long." "You were a victim too," I reminded him. "Maybe. But I was an adult who could have chosen differently. Some of these people she destroyed had no power, no options. The least I can do is help them now." Greg had been documenting the evening his camera, capturing genuine moments instead of staged performances. "Can I share something?" he asked. "When I first met Madison's family, I thought you were perfect. The elaborate parties, the generous gifts, Patricia's charm. It was intimidating. Now seeing you all real and healing and imperfect, this is so much better." "Real is always better than perfect," Mr. Williams agreed. "Perfect is just fear dressed up in nice clothes." As midnight approached, we lit sparklers, writing our wishes in the dark. Mine was simple, continued healing, continued truth, continued connection with these people who'd chosen to rebuild rather than remain broken. "I need to tell you all something," Dad said as the sparklers faded. "I've met someone. Her name is Carol, and she's a widow who understands complicated grief. We're taking it slow, but I wanted you to know." The silence that followed was contemplative, not judgmental. We were learning to accept joy alongside pain moving forward while acknowledging the past. "Bring her to Sunday dinner," Tyler said finally. "We'll cook something that doesn't require a $5,000 catering order." Laughter rippled through the group. We could joke about it now, the absurdity of our past normal compared to our present reality. As the gathering wound down, Madison pulled me aside. "I've been thinking about forgiveness. Not for her, but about her. Do you think she's capable of genuine remorse?" "I don't know," I admitted. "The Patricia who raised us was a character she played. I'm not sure even she knows who she really is underneath all the performance." Dr. Hoffman's evaluation said personality disorders like hers are nearly impossible to treat because the person can't acknowledge the problem. She'd have to admit her entire life was a lie, and that might break her completely. We stood in comfortable silence, sisters who'd found each other in the ruins of our mother's empire. The lake lapped gently against the shore, a rhythm older than any human deception. "We survived her," Madison said finally. "That's what matters." "We did more than survive," I corrected, echoing my words from months ago. "We thrived despite her. We found truth, chose love, built something real. That's the best revenge against someone who lived entirely in lies." As cars loaded and families departed, each goodbye included plans for next time. Sunday dinners at rotating houses, Tyler's birthday next month, Madison's thesis defense in the fall, normal family planning without the shadow of Patricia's manipulations. Dad lingered, helping me clean up. "Thank you," he said simply, "for breaking the cycle, for forcing us all to face truth, for saving us from her and ourselves." "We saved each other," I replied. "That's what real families do." After everyone left, I sat alone on the deck, listening to night sounds across the water. 6 months ago, we'd been shattered by revelations and betrayal. Now we were healing individually and collectively, building something Patricia could never understand or destroy. My phone showed one final notification. Catherine, my attorney, sending an update. Patricia lost her first appeal. The conviction stands. She won't be eligible for parole for at least 12 years. You're free to live without looking over your shoulder. Free. The word resonated across the water like the fireworks had earlier. Free from manipulation, from lies, from the constant drain of enabling someone who saw people as prey. Free to build a life based on truth and genuine connection. Somewhere in a prison cell, Patricia sat with the consequences of her choices. But here under the stars beside a peaceful lake, her family had found something she'd never offered, a healing harbor, where truth was spoken, love was genuine, and performance was unnecessary. We'd found our way home, not to a place, but to each other. And that was the greatest victory of all. Christmas Eve arrived with the kind of perfect snowfall that made everything look like a movie set. 1 year after the explosive confrontation that shattered our family's illusions, we gathered in my new home, a modest 3-bedroom house I'd purchased with the financial freedom Patricia's absence had created. The contrast was striking. Last year, chaos and revelations. This year, peace and possibility. The dining room table, bought secondhand and refinished with Tyler's help, bore the marks of real use rather than Patricia's pristine performances. Mismatched chairs told stories of different family members' contributions rather than a decorator's vision. Remember when we thought Christmas meant catering for 50? Madison laughed, helping me prep vegetables. Now it's just us, and it feels like more. She was right. Our gathering numbered 12 instead of 50, but each person present genuinely wanted to be there. No obligations, no performing for Patricia's audience, no anxiety about meeting impossible standards. Dad arrived with Carol, the widow he'd been dating. She carried a homemade apple pie and a warm smile that reached her eyes. "I've heard so much about all of you," she said. "Thank you for including me." "Thank you for making Dad smile again," Tyler replied, and we all saw how Daniel Morrison had indeed learned to smile without the weight of secrets. The doorbell rang throughout the afternoon as our rebuilt family arrived. Helen brought her famous rolls and a new boyfriend, proof that it was never too late to find love after betrayal. Jennifer and Emma came with handmade gifts, their relationship stronger for having faced truth together. Mr. Williams shuffled in with his daughter, who'd flown in from London after hearing how our adoptive grandfather had supported us through the crisis. Even unexpected guests appeared. Mrs. Chen from the restaurant arrived with spring rolls, insisting she wanted to thank us for exposing the life insurance Patricia had taken out on her. Detective Rivera stopped by, off-duty with cookies, sharing that Patricia's case had led to new protocols for identifying family financial abuse. "You'd be proud," Rivera told me. "Your case has helped train officers across the state. Families are getting help earlier because of what you exposed." As we prepared dinner together, the kitchen filled with laughter and easy conversation. No one worried about saying the wrong thing or failing to meet standards. Carol fit in naturally, her own experience with loss, allowing her to understand our complicated grief for a mother who'd never really existed. "I brought something," Dad said, producing a worn photo album. "Pictures from before, when things were still real, or at least seemed to be." We flipped through images of young Patricia, looking for signs we'd missed. But what struck me most were the photos of us children guarded even then, our smiles not quite reaching our eyes. "We were surviving even then," Madison observed. "We just didn't know it." Tyler's boyfriend Marcus had been documenting our year of healing, creating a visual timeline of our recovery. He showed us a slideshow, the small apartment gatherings after the arrest, the courthouse steps after conviction, the lake house 4th of July, dozens of Sunday dinners where we'd slowly learned to be a family without a puppet master. Look how your faces change, he pointed out. The tension disappears. You stop looking over your shoulders. You start touching each other casually. It's beautiful, actually. As dinner time approached, we faced an empty chair at the table. Not for Patricia, but for acknowledgement of absence. Helen suggested a moment of recognition. For those harmed by family betrayal, she said simply, may they find their own paths to healing. We ate turkey. Tyler had actually cooked himself vegetables from Madison's new gardening hobby bread Carol had taught Dad to make. Simple food prepared with care rather than orchestrated for impression. The conversation flowed naturally between serious and silly past and future pain and hope. I have an announcement, Emma said as we cleared plates. I got into Columbia, full scholarship for journalism, and they want me to write a book about our family story for my thesis. Congratulations erupted around the table. Patricia had once told Emma she'd never amount to anything jealous of her youth and potential. Now she was headed to an Ivy League school, her pain transformed into purpose. There's something else, Jennifer added. The website has been nominated for a humanitarian award. We've helped identify over 300 cases of family financial abuse. Some prosecutions have resulted directly from families finding resources through our platform. I thought of Patricia in her cell, unaware that her crimes had sparked a movement helping hundreds of families escape similar situations. The irony was sharp and satisfying. Tyler stood next, raising his sparkling cider. A year ago, I was a 28-year-old child living in my mother's house, too scared to be myself. Today, I'm a regional manager living with the man I love, 5 months sober and actually excited about life. To transformation. To transformation, we echoed glasses clinking. Each person shared their growth. Madison was publishing her first academic paper on trauma and resilience. Dad had joined a senior golf league and rediscovered joy in simple pleasures. Helen was teaching financial literacy at the community center, helping others avoid manipulation. When my turn came, I pulled out a printed manuscript. I finished the book, our story, but also a guide for recognizing and escaping family financial abuse. A publisher wants it. They think it could help thousands of families. The room erupted in support and excitement. What had begun as my private journal had evolved into something that might prevent others from suffering as we had. What will Patricia think? Someone asked. I don't care, I realized with surprise. This isn't about her anymore. It's about us and the families we can help. As evening deepened, we exchanged gifts. Not the elaborate presentations Patricia had orchestrated with stolen money, but thoughtful tokens of genuine affection. Handmade scarves, photo albums, donations made in each other's names to fraud victim support organizations. Dad gave me a small wrapped box. Inside lay Grandma Ellen's wedding ring, the one Patricia had claimed was lost. Found it hidden in her closet during the house clearing. She kept trophies, apparently. This belongs with you. I slipped the ring onto my right hand, feeling the connection to a grandmother who'd seen my value even when my mother couldn't. Her education fund had been my salvation. Her ring would be my reminder. At 9 o'clock, something unexpected happened. The correctional facility's email system delivered a message from Patricia. Instead of deleting it immediately, I asked the family what they wanted to do. "Whoop, read it," Madison said. "We're strong enough now to face whatever manipulation she's attempting." I opened it on my laptop, projecting it so everyone could see. "My darling family, Merry Christmas from this cold place where you've abandoned me. I found God in here and realize now how my mental illness hurt you all. When I get out, we can start fresh. I forgive you for betraying me. I'm planning wonderful things for when we're reunited. Remember, I'm still your mother, and that bond can never be broken. All my love, Patricia. P.S. Rosalie, I heard about your book deal. I'll expect my share of profits since it's my life story you're selling." The room sat in silence for a moment. Then Tyler started laughing. Soon we all joined in the absurdity of Patricia claiming profit from exposing her crimes too perfect to resist. Should we respond? Dad asked. No, I said firmly. We give her what she gave Linda's family, what she gave Aunt Helen, what she gave all her victims. Silence. Let her sit with her delusions while we live in truth. We deleted the email together, a ceremonial purging of her latest attempt at manipulation. Then we returned to our celebration, to the family we'd built from the ashes of her destruction. As midnight approached on this Christmas Eve, we lit candles for a new tradition. Each person shared one thing they were grateful for in this year of transformation. Truth, said Madison. Freedom, said Tyler. Courage, said Dad. Each other, I said finally, for choosing connection over isolation, healing over hatred, truth over comfortable lies. We sat in the candlelight, this family forged in the fire of betrayal, but refined into something precious. Patricia had tried to break us, but we'd broken free instead. She'd tried to isolate us, but we'd found each other. She'd fed us lies, but we'd chosen a diet of truth. One more thing, I said, standing. I want to ask you all something. This whole experience, the pain, the revelation, the healing, if you could go back and prevent it all, would you? The question hung in the candlelit room. Finally, Tyler spoke. No, as horrible as it was, it led us here. To truth, to freedom, to being able to love without manipulation. I wouldn't trade that for a lifetime of comfortable lies. One by one, the others agreed. The pain had been transformative. Patricia's cruelty had inadvertently given us the gift of authenticity, of connections deeper than any her performances had allowed. As our gathering drew to a close, I stood at my front door saying goodbyes. Real hugs, genuine tears, sincere promises to meet again soon. This was family as it should be, chosen, cherished, and held together by love rather than manipulation. Tyler lingered last. You saved us all you know, by stopping that mortgage payment, by refusing to enable her anymore. You broke the cycle. We broke it together, I corrected, and now we're building something better. After everyone left, I sat in my living room, looking at the tree decorated with ornaments made by various family members. Simple decorations that meant more than Patricia's elaborate displays ever had. On the coffee table sat printed emails from readers of our website thanking us for giving them courage to confront their own family financial abuse. Patricia was spending Christmas in a federal prison, her world reduced to a cell and the consequences of her choices. But her victims, her family, had found something she'd never understood, that true wealth lay not in money stolen, but in trust earned, not in performances staged, but in moments shared, not in lies maintained, but in truth spoken. I opened my laptop and began typing a new chapter for the book. This one about rebuilding after destruction, about the family you choose being stronger than the one you're born into, about how sometimes the greatest gift a toxic person can give is their absence. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in fresh white. A new beginning, clean and bright and full of possibility. We'd survived Patricia Morrison. More than that, we'd transformed her legacy of lies into a foundation of truth. And that was the best Christmas gift of all. As I finished writing and prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with messages from the family group chat, the one Patricia had never been part of. Tyler, thank you for the best Christmas ever. Madison, same time next year. Dad, wouldn't miss it for the world. I smiled, typing back, it's a date. Our new tradition, truth, love, and really good pie. The chat filled with heart emojis and laughter, the simple expression of affection Patricia had made so complicated. We'd found our way back to basics. Family meant showing up for each other, telling the truth, and choosing love over control. I thought about those reading our story, families, trapped in their own versions of Patricia's web. My final words were for them. If you recognize your family in ours, if you see Patricia's patterns in someone you love, know this: the pain of truth is temporary, but the prison of lies is forever. Choose freedom. Choose yourself. Choose the family that chooses you back. The mortgage on your soul is one bill you should never, ever pay. With that, I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and headed to bed in my own home, bought with my own money, filled with my own choices. Patricia's ghost had no power here. We'd exorcise it with the most powerful weapon of all, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Merry Christmas to all, and to all an honest night. Have you ever experienced financial manipulation within your family? How did you find the courage to break free and establish healthy boundaries? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might be the inspiration someone else needs to recognize their own situation and seek help. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more real-life narratives about overcoming family challenges. Share this video with anyone who might be struggling with similar situations. They need to know they're not alone. Thank you for joining me on this journey of truth and transformation. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and your family is to stop enabling destructive behavior. You deserve relationships built on mutual respect and genuine love, not manipulation and lies. Wishing you strength, wisdom, and the courage to choose truth over comfortable deceptions. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.